Welcome to the weekly rundown.
We're glad you're joining us here today. We have a fun podcast planned.
Oh yeah, we do. We'll be covering the Rittenhouse trial, and I know you wanted to talk about a segment as well.
Yeah, I want to talk about the education system. Very passionate in that, in my opinion.
Absolutely, it's very important. It's the future. It's what our kids, what everybody is going to be in the future. 20 years down the line, we can predict based off of the way that kids are taught now. But before we dive into, the news that we have today, we'd like to ask you to please leave a like and subscribe and comment down below if you think we should have mentioned something that you guys wanted us to mention. So we're going to go into the jury trial of Kyle Rittenhouse first. It's big news. It started last week. We're going to go into some of the days and what's led up to this. What's been going on in the trial, and we're just going to go through some testimony and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So jury selection was November 1st. It was noted that it was a very quick jury selection, which was a bit surprising to people. It consisted of 11 women and 9 men. So that's 20, and then it would be broken down into 12 for the jury.
Okay.
Because, every once in a while you gotta sub out somebody. And we're gonna get to somebody who actually did get kicked off the
Yeah, I think I heard about
jury.
that.
Yeah. So it's an interesting trial. I think it's gotten a lot of media attention. It's gotten a lot of attention from people that might not know exactly what they're talking about with the Rittenhouse trial. There's a lot of information, and people should really look into what's going on in the trial.
Yeah, I mean, when it happened last year, it was all over the media, so I'm sure everybody's heard about it.
Yeah, and it was, like science, information changes. You get more information as you go along. You get more of an understanding of the night. You get video cam footage. You get drone footage of people running. You get this and that can tell you what happened a little bit differently than what you might have heard August 25th.
Yeah, and honestly, after looking at everything, which we'll definitely talk about, it's awesome that all of this was recorded from all different points of view.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because could you imagine if it wasn't there?
Yeah, no. I don't really... it would have been terrible. I think it would have been
Kyle,
hard for
yeah.
either side.
Yeah.
Honestly. Nobody would have really known what would have... if these riots happened back in the 80s, there's a good chance that this would have been, this could have been glorified in any way back in the day. On November 2nd, the trial began, and the prosecution was actually allowed to present their opening arguments before the defense, which the defense actually gave up. They granted them the right to open it up, and they spent that time to paint the scene, to kind of say, this was a crazy scene, this was big crowd, big this and that, everybody was going crazy, and they made the argument that out of all the people, the only person that killed somebody that night was Rittenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Which I can somewhat understand that argument, okay, sure. The defense's argument is that there were a lot of circumstances that led to Kyle Rittenhouse needing to save his life, even though, there were people that were, attempting to shoot at him. There were people that had fired weapons at that time. There were people who were aiming weapons at him. There was a guy who beat him over the head with a skateboard. He stomped on his head.
And I didn't even know about that when the media never showed that. I had no idea the extent, because I thought it was just some kid that brought the gun, and I thought it was illegally because that's what the media was saying, and I didn't really know much about the gun laws and all this kind of stuff. And
oh yeah,
yeah,
there's a ton of arguments, and there's we're not even going to be able to cover everything that there is to cover about the Rittenhouse trial in this segment. So I urge everybody watching this to also look into it yourself. Look into the trial, watch what it's all available online, live streamed everywhere. So it's very you can keep up with this. You can figure out what's going on and what's not going on. We're going to get into a few ways how, certain parties and certain media figures have kind of tried to sway the public opinion of this event and what happened that night.
Yeah.
It definitely makes a difference amongst people. There are many people that are very tuned into what CNN says, what CNBC says, what all of these major media companies say. So
yeah, it's like definitely when I looked at different sources, like different media platforms, you can tell that there was a filter of bias in each and every single one.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
No matter what, because they don't want you to have a right to self-defense. They believe that any gun use is just wrong. And I think that's a big part of like getting rid of guns in general, just because, the very classic argument of when you get rid of guns, who are you affecting? You're not affecting the people who are actually causing crimes by these guns.
Because they still get it illegally, right?
No, that's the majority of what crime is. It's mostly illegal guns because they're not people that, are allowed to have guns.
Yeah.
So we need to put an end to that. It's not actual legal gun ownership that we need to put an end to. We shouldn't be stopping somebody's right to defend their lives as well, which we're going to get into. There's a lot on this Rittenhouse trial, and this trial means a lot more than just, it's just one random guy. This is a catalyst for a lot of things.
Yeah, there's a lot more. Yeah. When I watched what is it called? A proceeding or whatever it's called? Or
you're saying
I have no idea. I'm not good with law stuff.
Okay.
But I learned a lot from just watching the videos. There was a lot more than just what was shown at the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And when you look at the drone footage of Kyle, at first it looks like Kyle's somewhat chasing him, and then they tried to make that argument, and then Kyle was like, "Why don't you play it a few more seconds?" And it turns out that it was Rosenbaum was chasing him. Kyle somehow evaded him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rosenbaum, Kyle faked going one way, went straight. Rosenbaum ended up going that way.
Yep.
And then he
chasing
chasing
after Kyle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then he ran forward, and then Rosenbaum ended up chasing him the rest of the way. So it's like, they have no crux of an argument. They have nothing that can say that they really, that Rittenhouse acted in a manner that wasn't self-defense.
Absolutely. I agree now, more so than last year when things were just completely blown out of proportion against Kyle.
So the three guys involved with this case are Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Huber, and Gage Grosskreutz. Gage actually testified in this trial. He's the one who had gotten shot in the arm. So we're going to talk about him and what led to that situation. But both Rosenbaum's the big one. He's the real instigator of this whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who was chasing after Kyle Rittenhouse and was screaming certain things that just, any mob riot type situation would have. Very beautiful. We're pulling up a few other pictures. So these are a few pictures from the week, and the picture on right there is of him in court, talking about his trial, talking about the nights of that event, how a few moments before Rosenbaum had been chasing him, and a few moments before that whole situation got deadly. They were talking. They were, he had to recount what was going on, and events that happened. And he just
I think he broke down really hard when he was explaining that scene. I'm sure we'll talk about when he was on the ground, and it was a really horrible time.
for
him. Yeah, and obviously we'll explain, but he started breaking down. And it was actually really sad.
Yeah, it was a disappointing situation, and something that, it shows that he even felt bad, even though he knows that he didn't do anything. Like, he was supposed to, he had to protect his life, and he didn't want to take the lives of others.
Yeah.
It's very obvious by the way that he's very young. He expresses the way that he is, the way that he feels. Like, there was no intent that night to kill somebody. There was no intent to say, oh, we're going to go out and kill these people. Like, no, this was a situation that other people started threatening his life, started doing things that really, like, shouldn't have been happening. So let's go into the first testimony of Dominic Black. Dominic was Kyle's best friend back before all of this. So the night of August 25th, that's the day that, all of this took place. Kyle and Dominic had been hanging out, and they were, they were planning out the events. They were planning out what they had to do. They were talking about the car stores that they had to work at. That's what ended up putting them in Kenosha, which was a 20-minute drive from their house, which was where Kyle Rittenhouse had worked. I want to make that very clear to everybody. This whole state lines narrative is crazy. It's been disproven for the longest amount of time. It's unnecessary. It's bullshit. He didn't. It's not like he was driving 2 hours to get here and then this and that. This is where he worked. He had an assignment to do there, and
did he clean up graffiti too?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got that picture. But yeah, he and a bunch of his friends, a bunch of his buddies, the guys that he was working with, they were cleaning up graffiti. They were helping out people who were injured, who had, they brought up a story in court about how he had helped this lady who had sprained her ankle, how he had taped her up and all of this. And we're going to get more into another argument that the prosecution presented that was about Rittenhouse's location the night of the shooting, where, like, he possibly could have gone somewhere else. But there's obviously more to that story.
Yeah.
Context matters, and
it really does.
That's the point of this trial. That's the point of having a judicial system. So that way, when we actually break down everything that happened, we understand there's a lot more to this than just what appeared to have happened.
Yeah.
So the big AR-15 in question was obtained at Dominic Black's house. So there's a big argument against Rittenhouse about, Rittenhouse does face one charge that stems to possessing a firearm of that magnitude. So, we're going to break that down and where
that
he
wasn't
obtained
his,
it.
right? Like, is that the specifics?
Yeah. So Rittenhouse obtained the AR-15 there. The claims in court was that he didn't personally hand it to Rittenhouse, but he absolutely didn't oppose Rittenhouse taking it. So that's going to get a little bit weird, because Black actually has 2 charges himself that he's facing.
Wouldn't that be the fault of the gun owner themselves for giving it to a minor, or is that really not the case?
That's Black.
Yeah.
So those are the charges that he's facing, and it's like, you pretty much admitted in court that, like, I don't know what his angle behind that was. And we're going to talk about Gage and what his angle was, because these are like 2 of the more important people involved in the situation. Other people are more of eyewitness testimonies. These are people that were directly involved with the situation. So it's very interesting to see the way that they kind of present themselves in court and present the story. There was one, Gage he was practically lying in court the entire time. Very much misleading with everything that he said, and it was very much, we'll get into it.
Mm-hmm.
So Black carried a rifle the night of the shootings. He was protected. He was also protecting the used car lot. They were, they were together. They were a group. They were all working together to try to, protect against rioters, looters, all that.
Right,
beautiful stuff.
and as I can recall, they didn't use the gun to protect the property.
Yeah.
They used like fire extinguishers and stuff, right?
They were putting out fires throughout the night.
Yeah.
They were, we're gonna pull a video in a little bit, and it'll show the dumpsters being set on fire and being hurled down streets. They were originally aiming to. See, I got this wrong throughout the week a few times, where although it was aiming in the proximity, the burning dumpsters were very close to the
gas station.
gas
right?
stations.
Yeah, and that's dangerous.
The target were the police. They were trying to hit the police officers with the burning dumpster.
Man, this was a horrible summer.
Yeah? And it's
Absolutely.
Talking about it was mostly peaceful.
Oh yeah, you're right. Mostly peaceful.
see, there's a guy named Corey Washington. His testimony is very interesting. And that's when we're going to pull up body cam footage, because he's an eyewitness, but he recorded all of it. He's got Facebook Live videos of what happened.
Oh yeah, okay, I know who you're talking about.
And they made it into the trial, so we're gonna pull up the clips that kind of made the trial, and I want to pull up another thing that kind of highlights something. So the prosecution made an argument that Rittenhouse should have been on the roof. This is the argument that I was talking about before, where his location was in question, Rittenhouse's location. But again, another guy who, the leader of kind of what Rittenhouse was doing there, the guy who was pretty much giving them the job, said that he wanted Kyle down on the ground so that way he can provide medical services to people. Because he knew CPR, he knew how to do, he knew how to wrap up people's injuries, how to do certain things that...
Yeah, and he brought that medic kit with him, too.
No, exactly. So
it's not his idea to hurt people. It was actually
Exactly.
the complete opposite.
He was placed down there not to be a soldier, but to help people, to be the army doctor. Somebody who's just going to... And there were stories of him, honestly, even helping out anybody. If somebody just needed help, like he was helping that person, it was more of just, I want to keep this thing safe, okay? I want to keep this thing fine. Don't touch my stuff. So... You saw Kyle fix somebody's hand who had a big gash in it, Richards asked. Yes, Black said. So that's another instance of when, that was a quote throughout the trial where Black was asked if he saw Rittenhouse. Jesus, I cannot get this line out. We're gonna edit this out.
Yeah,
I'm gonna read.
No rush.
So when asked about this situation, Dominic said, Nick Smith said no. He wanted Kyle on the ground because he's a medic and can provide services, correct? Richards asked. Yes, Black responded. You saw Kyle fix somebody's hand who had a big gash in it, the lawyer asked again. And Dominic answered in the affirmative. So,
who is Richards? Is he the one that
The
was defending
prosecution.
Kyle? Oh, okay, okay.
he was the guy who, I believe this was a prosecution witness, Dominic, just because he's like, yeah, I gave him the weapons. This is, he definitely had this weaponry. It was definitely him. But, yeah, it was, the prosecution did not get much from Nick Smith. Or not Nick Smith, Dominic Black. I can't get this segment out at all. He's probably gonna go away for those 2 charges that he's got. He gave a kid a gun. He was part of that situation.
And he's 18 plus.
Yep.
Ooh.
And that's the only, and I was thinking about this when the trial first started. illegal possession might be the only thing that they might have him on. You know, I still don't fully
I think
know.
so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Oh, and there was, he violated the, what do you call it? The, referendum to stay home. The, what do they call it? Curfew.
Oh, yeah, the
he
curfew.
He violated the 8 p.m. curfew.
Are they going to charge that to everyone that was out that
Yeah,
night?
I was going to say, we've got body cam
Right?
footage. There were
Like,
hundreds of people out there.
Everyone on the stand that was there involved, are they going to get the same fines and fees for that too?
Absolutely. I hope so. You know, let's treat everybody equally. This is the beauty of this whole movement. Let's treat everybody equally. Equity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are these pictures Dominic?
Yes, these are the pictures.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I saw him. I watched him. All right.
Yes.
Wow.
So next we're going to go to a guy named Martin Howard. He was the Kenosha detective. So there was a lot of questions about him.
Mm-hmm.
He is a rookie detective. Somebody who, you know, there was a lot of questions thrown onto him this week. So, first of all, he said that the defense said that a bullet fired by someone in the crowd just before Rittenhouse began shooting made the young man believe that he was being attacked. That was an argument by the defense this week.
Well, yeah. That's a little frightening.
Yeah. So, Martin Howard testified and backed this up, which was, you know, it's very obvious. If you hear a gunshot, you hear a gunshot. If it's on video, you hear a gunshot. Like, I was a little, when first seeing the videos, I was like, what gunshots were those? I didn't see.
Yeah, I didn't see either.
Like, that didn't really make much sense. And if you're running away from somebody and you hear gunshots behind you, would that not scare you? Would that not tell you fight or flight? Like, I'm already in fight or flight by running away. He was kind of picking flight there. He was not picking an argument.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
he wasn't instigating. He was running away.
He was literally running away from a person. But he was like, wait a minute, I've got an AR-15 strapped to me. Maybe I can control the situation by turning around and saying, stop it. Slow it down. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to kill you. I'm not trying to do any of this. Like, but, of course, Rosenbaum had to, you know, reach for the gun and all of this. And it's just, there were a lot of things that led up to this situation that just, it didn't need to happen.
Yeah, not at all. He targeted him. Rosenbaum targeted Kyle.
Yeah, exactly. So the Howard testified that 2.5 seconds after he heard the gunshot was when Rittenhouse started firing. That's a very important part of the defense because it's not like he heard it, did all this stuff, and then started firing. It was he absolutely in that moment at least
reacted
to it. He reacted to it. It wasn't.
Yeah, that is reaction time.
Exactly. It's he turned around and boom, goodbye. It's just
at the person that was running after him.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he was unarmed, but
you don't
honestly,
know that when you hear a gunshot.
Yeah, exactly. And second of all, I don't really think I would care.
Well,
if somebody was some grown man was chasing after me, that would be my first instinct if I had one.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because it's like, who knows what they would do? You can beat me to a pulp, and I wouldn't be able to. I could die from that. Like, people can die from that, you know.
Exactly.
Even if it was just that, or if he had a knife.
Mm-hmm. And there was other testimony throughout the course of these past 2 weeks that show that it's not like Rosenbaum stood in his place even after like Rittenhouse turns around. Rosenbaum lunges for the gun.
Mm-hmm.
He gets his hand on the gun. Rittenhouse shoots.
Yeah, because then given that this guy seems to already be violent, you can already see that he could have used that gun against him.
Absolutely. He didn't have any weapons, but he was setting fires. He was setting the garbage fires.
Mm-hmm.
Rosenbaum. He was the only one that was screaming about killing people.
Yep.
He was the only one using, well, I'm not going to say the only one using the N-word that night, but he was one of the individuals screaming the N-word,
Even though he was white.
Chasing Kyle.
Yep. Absolutely.
Who was also white.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's a whole big thing to me. I don't know what it is. Like, it's white guilt, I guess? But it's like, is it because you support the party that controlled slaves?
Probably.
Is that why you have this white guilt? I don't
know.
I
Some
understand.
people do use it regardless.
I mean, they still control the slaves. It's just not in the same way. It's slavery of thought,
Absolutely.
not slavery
Very
of
good
labor.
point, Zach.
No, absolutely, because it's anytime Joe Rogan. I put up a clip today or Thursday, of Joe Rogan talking about how the left is just crazy with it. If you don't follow along with what they say, if you're like, they'll say black conservatives are white supremacists. What in the hell is that?
that what I've noticed, and I think is the reason why I am leaning more right and more right every day, is that they're becoming more authoritarian.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a difference between liberals and libertarians that I found out thanks to PragerU. And it
Yes.
seems like the leftists
Big
are
difference.
a really huge issue. And I was never one of those, F Democrats, F Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
No, the leftists really do seem to be the big problem right now.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
See, and I was thinking about this week, like, when I was posting about Rittenhouse, the issue is that there's a common notion that Republicans think that Democrats are misinformed. Democrats think that Republicans are insane.
Yeah.
I didn't say it correctly. I know that I didn't, but there is a quote along those lines.
It's true, though.
And it's just, we're going to keep up to date with stuff. This entire week, I kept getting different news stories that were, or not news stories, like different comments on the Rittenhouse post that were just like, this is news that was just like, this was how it was presented August 26th, the day after the shooting. And you're just repeating those talking points that have been proven false many times at this point.
A year later, yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just, like the science, like all the stuff, it changes. You have to keep up to date. You have to understand there's new information. It's an ever abundance of information. We talked about it last week where you can't just go to one source for information.
Yeah, and you can't just assume what's going on. Wait a while, see what actually happened, look at everything before you make decisions or assumptions.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the way that certain court cases can be ruled by mob rule and can be changed by the way that people react to different trials and the way that other people react in those trials. Like this week, they they made a whole big point about how somebody was filming the jurors that were, going in and out, trying to get rid of that level of transparency so that way if they get the wrong verdict, these are the people that did it.
Wow.
It's the same thing as, I believe, what happened with the Chauvin trial, where it's like, there was no way that Chauvin would have gotten a fair trial just because of the amount of riots and just because everybody knew everybody involved with that. Everybody, they figured out who the jurors were. They did this and that. It's just, you got to create a fair trial.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yes.
Oh, we should definitely talk about that too.
Yeah.
I like this judge, though, so far.
Oh,
he
yeah.
seems very...
He
I
seems
don't even
mellow.
want to say, impartial, because he does kind of...
No, he seems to be
He
a judge.
seems-
If you
yeah.
see him,
He
he
seems
points out
impartial
what the
in that
lawyers
he
are doing
points
wrong.
out, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's pointed out that the prosecution can't speak about Kyle's right to remain silent.
Yeah. Well, it was absolutely ridiculous the way that the
Right.
prosecution handled it. It was...
Yeah, oh god, it was
the
such a
prosecution
clown
brought
show.
up something, I think, yesterday or today that was deemed inadmissible in court during pre-trial.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the judge cleared the jury again and had to tell him, this is not admissible. You
They-
cannot present
Exactly.
They
It's like as if it's his first day on the job.
Like, the judge has threatened mistrial twice now, I
Yeah.
think.
The prosecution originally wanted to call the people that, Rosenbaum and, Gage and the other one,
Victims.
Huber. Yeah, victims.
Not
How is that
the
going
rioters that they were.
How is that going to sway a jury?
Right.
You're going to call them victims?
Right.
They weren't victims. This is a self-defense trial. What
Exactly.
Stop it.
Right.
It's all about the mental sway, and they figured that part out. The left has figured out that, if you can mentally sway the way that people think, and that's the whole point of CRT.
Psychology, sociology, it's really
Exactly.
important, and it really does show now.
It's the whole point of CRT.
Yeah.
They want you to think in a way that just mind control, brainwash.
Well, they don't want you to think at all.
No, exactly.
They
Think
just
for
want you to-
yourself.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that I can definitely talk about in the education system.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
It's garbage. Everything. Homeschool, if you can.
Honestly, I'm leaning more towards it if I ever have kids.
Yep.
What I think that we should be doing, and what or more of? So, retired teachers. Sometimes they need a little bit of extra money. You get one teacher for a block. A bunch of parents in the block say, "Hey, let's chip in. Let's get the salary together. Maybe it's a couple $1,000s a year for the entire neighborhood. You know what I mean? And then they can pay that teacher's salary, and then, here's what the kids did this week.
Mm-hmm.
Here's this and that." I think that's a great idea. It's going
That is a good
back
idea.
to the free market idea, where it's like, hey, because the idea behind school is like, parents can't be around their kids all the time. Some parents have to work, both
Right.
parents. It's a luxury to have one parent at home. So
Thanks.
that kind of helps it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really don't think that we needed to be in when you see the prices of houses and the prices of this and that over the years,
Right.
it doesn't line up with inflation. We didn't need to do all this. We very easily could have lived. Father makes the money, and then the mother helps with,
Absolutely.
they both help with the raising of the kids, but the father goes out and does the work, and goes to a job, and the
Or
mother,
whoever the breadwinner is,
Yeah,
and whoever
exactly.
isn't the
Right.
breadwinner.
yeah. I'm saying I'm not saying now it has to
Oh,
be,
yeah.
but I'm saying we could have been fine with a breadwinner,
I don't
and
know.
then
I'm kind
somebody
of
who
leaning
helps.
towards it going back. To be honest, I kind of like the idea.
And most women do. When polled, even though there is that whole big movement of saying
You
yeah,
can do
women
all
can,
the same
yeah,
things.
it's women don't want to live single at 40 years old.
My thing is, it's fine to say women can do all the same things, but it's another thing to say, do women want to do the same things?
Exactly. Not all women.
I think
want
there
to
should be
have this.
equal opportunity to
Exactly.
do what you want
Exactly.
to, but should it be enforced the way it was? I say to
Absolutely.
me, there's been a good moment of my life where femininity just was seen as horrible, and so I avoided anything feminine, like makeup, accessories.
So did Zach.
I avoided all that stuff, and I wasn't happy. And I'm happier now because I'm I kind of like this stuff. I'm
Yeah.
kind of letting it
Free to
happen,
do what
even
you
though,
want.
yeah.
See, and that's all we care. We don't care about you guys doing stuff. It's more of we don't want you to be forced to do this stuff just because it's there are
Just
a lot
because that's
of
what people want you to do.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or society, or, the
Right.
government.
You just want to be free to make your own decision of what you want to do.
Absolutely. Because I'm sure there are statistics on this, and maybe we mention this in the next segment that we do of the school system.
Absolutely. I
should-
actually got something related to that, too.
Of single parent or a parent in the household versus a parent not in the household. Okay, yeah, because that's something that I definitely want to look into and see just how different it is. Because I don't want to say certain statistics. Well, I don't have any statistics right now, but I don't want to say anything that is wrong right now. But I'm pretty sure it's if you got a parent in the house who's there when you come home, it's that kid is much better. Much more likely to be better.
or,
off for this
two
and that.
parents.
Yeah, exactly. People like parents. So, on the day of Martin Howard's testimony, they also removed a juror who made a joke about Jacob Blake, which was so stupid. Stupid. This whole thing started because of the protests of Jacob Blake. Why? Why is it
Yeah,
needed?
wasn't this the guy that did not put his hands up when the officers told him to? He went to the car
Grabbed a knife.
and grabbed a knife.
Was told multiple times to put it down.
Yeah.
Didn't.
He's a great man.
And plus, he was also domestic abuser,
yeah, domestic
and
abuse,
the
sexual
wife
assault,
called
and I
on
think
him, or
something
girlfriend.
else.
It was a girlfriend. Like, called the police on him because he was violent, and he's had a record of such.
Oh, he had a warrant for his arrest.
Yeah, and I felt like that was more crystal clear than the George Floyd thing.
Yep.
I honestly thought that was more crystal clear. I'm like, well, clearly Jacob's in the
See,
wrong.
And that's the whole big issue with CRT that we
You stop looking at facts and you only look at skin color.
It's really
Exactly.
sad.
We're growing from we're growing from looking at what happened, what's going on, the context of the situation, due process. Very basic due process. Very basic just what happened, who's at fault. Not even that happens at the end, but it's what happened, who did what was said, what was done, and we need to do that before we make a claim about anything, because race is not the way to do it. And every single problem we've had throughout this country has revolved around race, and it's the way that we handle it. It's when we're hyper-focusing on race and hyper-focusing on one race doing better than the other, that's when problems happen, and it's very simple
Right,
and very
and
obvious.
it's like the same as like rich versus poor, and it's the poor that gets
Exactly.
mad at the rich instead of understanding what the rich does.
Yeah, exactly. They invest, they do this and that.
Yeah, they don't just take money and not pay taxes. There's a reason why they don't pay as much as in taxes.
See, and that's the victim mentality. If you're
Yep,
spending
mentality.
if you're spending all of this time worrying about the way that somebody else got somewhere, or spending all of your time worrying about why somebody's got all this stuff, why don't you figure out how they got there? Because
Right.
a lot of these people are self-made. Most billionaires, they're self-made. They're not necessarily paid by their parents. They're not necessarily this or that. They did something.
The government didn't give them that money.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
They weren't on welfare for it.
They weren't illegal immigrants who deserve $450,000 per person. $450K.
That's more than the president makes a year.
I would love to have some of that, to be honest.
How much were
Right.
the stimulus checks?
$2,000.
Some of them were $1,200.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
And how many did we get? 1, 2 if you were lucky.
I got 0.
You got... Oh.
Yeah, I didn't get any stimulus checks.
Wow. I only got it after doing my taxes because I moved out in April. So technically I was out, I was not a dependent
I see.
for more than 6 months.
I see.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. No. Fun times.
oh, that's great.
$450K per illegal immigrant.
Well,
I
per
wish I had
illegal
that.
immigrant, if they were separated from their families, like the children were separated from them. But I think that's just stupid.
Hold on. If a mother goes and kills somebody, do we give that mother money because she did a crime and now she has to be separated from her children?
Right.
Wow, that's a really good point because it is a crime to illegally cross the border.
If you're separated from your kids, that's your own doing.
What's
That's
his
your
name?
choice.
Fox News anchor for the
Anchor
White
babies?
House.
Yeah.
He asked the deputy press secretary that's filling in for Jen Psaki while she has her
She
COVID.
sucks.
He asked her, like, so this whole thing about, like, the $450,000 per person coming over the border, why are you doing it? And she goes, well, and she couldn't really answer the question.
Of course
Yep.
not.
And
Oh yeah, I
he
know what
asked,
you're talking about. Yeah.
Then he said something about, well, why wouldn't you do it for the people that are coming over legally? And she goes,
Yep.
well, why would you? Like, why
Yep.
would you do that? Like, why would
Exactly.
you pay them?
And it's like, can you not see that
Yeah,
you literally
she's supporting paying the ones committing a crime to come in.
Yep.
Like, we live in a circus.
And it's like, hold on. I don't think we'd care as much if it wasn't 6 figures.
Right. Like, okay, maybe 5,000, if that, to cover any therapy that you would need, if you need therapy, because if you were willing to take the trip or send your kids separate from you and have them raped and beaten.
No, they
Absolutely.
clearly want them to buy
No.
property here.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's what you would. What else would you do for $450K?
Exactly.
In my opinion, I would
Well,
buy
yes.
a house.
Yeah.
That is that was exactly my next point. That it's, and with 2 parents, if it's 2 parents separated, that's $900,000, because it's every
yeah, gotta
adult.
move them into Beverly Hills.
It's crazy.
Exactly, and it's just that's exactly how they play with it. That's how they give
It's
you.
like laws don't even matter anymore.
Yep.
Nope.
And it's when you start doing certain things like that, you're incentivizing illegal border crossings. $450K.
Right. Even though they said
you-
it was for only those who came over in 2018 and were separated, do you think that that's going to be the message that gets to the rest of the people waiting to come over? Like, probably not. It's like a game of telephone.
It will automatically give them a home better than
Like most people have now.
exactly.
Yep.
My parents' home is like $100,000, like something like that, you know, in the hundreds.
Wow.
So it's
Yeah.
like they're getting $450,000 just for one person. Like if that's a family of 4 and it's per
Mhm.
person, like that's a lot of money.
And who's paying for it?
Us,
Hmm.
of course. Who else? Meanwhile, they're asking people being flown back from Afghanistan to pay back the, you know, flights and
Yep.
all the resources that they had to spend on that, even though they could have had it done perfectly fine if they just stuck to the plan. Now Americans have to pay everything back. It's absolutely disgusting.
I miss Trump.
It's just
I miss literally anyone else.
Anyone
exactly.
else. Literally
miss-
anyone
I
else.
miss literally
Rocks.
anybody else.
Like, I miss rocks. If a rock was on the ballot, I would vote for it.
Yeah.
Because anything would be better than what we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah,
I think Cuomo
seriously.
might have been better than this.
Honestly.
I think so too.
Honestly.
I'm not even joking. Like, I
But then
really do
again,
think.
it would have been the same problem because it's sandbagging us. No matter
Mhm.
what we do, it's sandbagging us. I don't see a single thing that Build Back Better for who?
for
For
the political elites, obviously.
the political elites and the people
Their
who
agenda,
are not in this
their
country.
narrative.
Who like
Not for the American people.
this is not building back better in any way. This is not a
We're
solid economic policy
still
in any way.
in COVID
I think
times
what
right
they
now with the
need is-
mandates.
Who
Why?
wants to build back better, like better as in like where we were before the Great Depression. Like, just before.
I mean, gotta
Within
relive the
6
20s.
months.
You know what I was thinking about though with that? It reminds me of like the Make America Great Again thing. The let's build back better.
Oh yeah, make America great again.
Build back
Just
better. It's
word
the
it down.
It was
same
never
thing.
great.
It's the same thing, but one involves freedom and one involves communism.
Right.
Like
Whoop-de-doo.
it really
I wonder
really
which
does
one's
feel,
better.
It really does feel like a mirror. With one side has like Trump on it, one side has Biden on it. Or not a mirror. More I don't know what it would be where like,
Like
you know,
2 rooms.
yeah, like
There's
2
a door.
different there's a glass window
Mhm.
right between and it's like you can see the
It's identical
drastic
on either
difference.
side, but it's 2 different people standing there.
Absolutely, and it's craziness. It's just, and that was what was supposed to happen with Bernie and Trump, yeah, but that couldn't happen.
That couldn't happen.
You couldn't get 2 populist candidates.
No. And I actually saw, and I was a Bernie supporter at the time too, and I actually saw how Bernie was in the lead for the longest time, and then all of a sudden Biden spiked, like with
Yeah.
the DNC stuff, and I'm like,
It was
oh,
It was like that.
I
he
was
just dropped.
pissed, but I guess it.
I'm pretty sure you can like pin it down to like one day, where it just
It was
all
one
of
day.
a sudden he dropped.
Yep.
I mean, you can.
No,
pin it
I was
down
at
to
work,
1 hour
remember?
for when Biden won the 2020 election, so
Absolutely.
that's not suspicious.
So I knew like the DNC was corrupt that day, though other people probably knew a
You knew
long
the
before
government was
time.
corrupt that day.
Yeah, I learned a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Like, oh, that's not right.
Yeah. No. Speaking of not right, let's talk about Corey Washington's testimony. He was actually the guy who had video footage of what the events were going on. So I wanted to point out 2 different things First, I want to point out a quote that he had said. We're going to pull up the video real quick. So we're going to pull up the first clip of Corey Washington that I wanted to show. And he talks about the events, and because he was documenting each night of the protest for Jacob Blake. So I wanted to first document something that he said that I found pretty interesting.
It seemed, in my opinion, it just seemed that it was, I guess, the best case scenario for something like this to happen, just with everything that was going on in the nation. There was a giant migration from the West headed to Washington. The situation with George Floyd was hot in Minnesota, and people were kind of close to get here. I'm sure everyone knows there's plenty of people from Minnesota that ended up in Kenosha that night and the following nights. The next night, that Monday night, there was protests and things throughout the day. As far as I recall and remember, during the day everything was peaceful.
Peaceful protest.
There was talks of, hey, like, we can't allow stuff like that went on before to go on again. But as nightfall comes, there's more mysterious people in the city. You don't really know, everybody, and again, everybody has their own motives really in a situation like that. So you definitely could tell that there was plenty of people being, I suppose, opportunistic about the situation.
Rioters, looters,
Some of
people
the
who were stealing from
more noteworthy
buildings and stuff.
proper instances of property damage during all this. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not. The Car Source lot over
Car
on the
Source
east side
is
of
where they
Sherry,
were working.
burned one of these.
Oh,
nights.
okay.
Are you personally familiar
That's
with
where
that?
Rittenhouse.
Did you witness any of that? Is that a yes?
Yes.
What,
Sorry.
what night was that? Do you recall?
I believe it was Monday night.
There was also a lot of damage to the uptown area
Peaceful.
along 22nd
Peaceful,
Avenue.
mostly.
Did you witness any of that? Do you remember which night that was?
I believe that was Monday night as well.
And then
But yeah, so that's pretty much what I wanted to get out of that. So the main thing that I wanted to say was that he said it was pretty much inevitable. The hostility there, the amount of people just freaking out was insane. It was something that very, again, hostile, something that not many people would want to be a part of, not many people would want to take part in, and he was there to defend other people. He was there to protect other people. He was not there to body hunt for other people.
Absolutely. But that's how the media portrayed him as, and that's what I thought back then too. It's like he just went out to hurt people
Exactly.
who.
And it's like, that's not the truth at all.
Yeah,
that's not
no.
what happened. That's not. It's ridiculousness. It's craziness. So next, I wanted to show exactly what the situation was, because this is the guy who you can really see what happened, what was going on, the events of the situation. So we're gonna now pull up this other clip that he has
That
at this other time,
lit up.
and we're gonna watch what was going on in that time. It's about a 10-minute part, so this might be a bit, but we're gonna talk about kind of what's going on here. So this is the beginning. This is when, for context, this is when it's coming right now. The dumpster. You see that?
Yeah.
Yep. That's a dumpster on fire. They're trying to put it out. That's Rittenhouse and his buddies. All the smoke is the fire extinguishers and stuff. That was the first gunshot. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that the first one?
pause for a second here because
That
we're going
was
to be viewing someone that I want to talk a little bit about.
I'm going
I
to assume that was the
assume
Rosenbaum.
since
Well,
the
it's
night of
like
August
peaceful.
25th, 2020, you're aware of who Joseph Rosenbaum is. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And
This is the
let me
prosecution
just put
talking.
you back in the state of mind of that particular night. As of August 25th, 2020, did you know who he was?
No.
To your knowledge, had you ever encountered him before in your life?
No.
Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with this video or not, but for the benefit of the jury,
Convicted pedophile by
do you
now.
know, are you able to
New
recognize
information
Mr.
available.
Rosenbaum in this
Never
video?
knew about that until now.
He's not shown
Great
on the screen
fight,
at this very
kids.
moment because we paused a little bit. I didn't call timeout.
Oh.
It was a little late. But let me just ask
Sounds like
generally,
he's
are
in
you
where he
able
should
to
be.
recognize him if you see him
Where
on
he
the
should have
screen?
been.
Yeah, I would know what he looks like, yes.
And that's based on what you
About
Honestly,
100 feet
agree.
since
under.
all this happened?
Yes.
Okay. And just
I don't know how
there's
deep
no any
hell
dispute
is.
about this. I'll represent for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury that Mr. Rosenbaum is wearing a red shirt. He's got some, I think they're jean shorts, aren't they? And I don't think he's got anything. I think he's got anything on his head at this point. Does he? Okay. So he's kind of a shorter gentleman with nothing on his head, a red shirt. And you've got some video of him that we're going to see momentarily, so I wanted
Some
to let
jorts.
the jury know
He's
that.
got
so
nice
we-
style.
As we're watching.
Jorts
So
are-
go ahead. Thank you.
Probably not the smartest.
Surprised he wasn't playing by the flag wearing MAGA hat.
Yo, don't throw shit over here, bro. They about to. Bro.
They just identify him. Red shirt, shorts.
I'm not trying to fucking shot.
Wow.
Yeah, bro.
Now we're gonna watch this, like a large portion of this, just because you get better angles towards the end.
Yeah, I don't think I've watched this full
Fire on
video.
people, bro. We got people in
Put it
position.
in the podcast, make it look a little bit better, but yeah.
How about all the people that just wanted to get gas? They're like, okay, well, I guess I'll just do this.
But look at all these people breaking the curfew.
Oh no.
There, Mr. Washington.
Everybody deserves.
Seeing on the screen there,
Absolutely.
with all the people and all the action on that screen, at any point during this particular incident that we're watching, did anyone fire a gun?
No.
Did you see anyone get physically injured in any way?
No.
Please continue.
Asshole! You too happy, motherfucker! You too happy! You too happy with a motherfucker!
He said he didn't hear a gun, but didn't we just hear
They're
shots?
not about to just let you just.
There's the
Yeah, the dumpster.
dumpster. I think we might have heard loud bangs before. That might have been
Okay.
Too happy! See? Bitch, get your son!
Could also be the dumpster.
Yeah.
This is a metal dumpster, though. It definitely sounds like
It really does.
just being there seems like insane.
So it looks like the cops are leaving now.
Clearly COVID was a real thing now since they're all together.
He's not like it doesn't spread anymore.
Looks like
Oh,
the
yeah, you're
cops
right.
are now
Especially
leaving.
during riots.
Yo,
and
no,
protests.
come
We've
on,
seen
Certain
bro.
protests.
Yeah. January 6th can
What
spread,
are y'all doing,
Absolutely.
bro?
but not mass riots.
Wait,
across country.
I just hold on,
Yo,
I'll pause it for a
bro.
second. Guys, I just saw the most
Bro.
insane thing I've ever seen in this video.
Fucking,
Gas was 205 back then.
come on, bro.
Times. I wish we had that.
Yeah.
They had 205 for gas back then. Holy cow.
Oh.
That's where the bag was thrown at him.
Left, and as soon as they left, things just got heated. I'm not about to stand in a line of fire at all.
And recording the school fights really got this guy somewhere.
I love his commentary. Come on, man.
I know, right?
Joe Biden school of commentary. Ooh. Got a lady just running through the...
No, I'm
Oh, 209.
I'm good,
Sorry.
man.
My bad, guys.
Yeah.
Still
Aw,
pretty
look at that beautiful, beautiful sign.
First time to have the green haired feminist.
Definitely people throwing
It's so
rocks.
true.
Careful.
That guy with the green mask looks like a cool
Careful,
guy.
just
He looks
throwing
like
rocks.
somebody that you definitely want to hang out with. Did you hear that? They're throwing
Hey,
rocks.
how's it going?
Rosenbaum, he did not have
Good.
weapons, but he was throwing rocks at Rittenhouse. Because it was later confirmed that Rittenhouse was, or Rosenbaum was the one that was throwing rocks. Those could be a very deadly weapon. I could kill all of you guys with a rock.
Yeah.
That looks like a military member right there. I don't know what they're. I don't think that they're actually. It looks like they're in their hunting gear. That's Kyle.
There he is. Okay. I don't think I've ever seen this video.
Oh yeah. But this is.
Probably because it tells the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what the media wants to see.
Blue-haired feminist is friends with red-haired feminist.
I was just gonna mention her.
That guy must be really lucky. Ooh, I like his mask wearing. The guy on the bike. He's
Me
good.
too.
Nice chin diaper. Zach, don't you love the video?
Yes.
Oh wait, can you actually see it? No? No. That guy's got a gas mask on. He's
I
smart.
know,
He
right?
understands.
Mhm.
Gas buttons everywhere. How much BO do you think is in that crowd right
I
there?
know, right?
They've been rioting all day. I doubt they ever heard of deodorant. Or I guarantee you that they have some racist meaning behind. I can't use deodorant because it was used for the. I don't know. I don't want to even finish
Minorities
up.
can't get deodorant, just like they can't get the IDs.
Oh, good one, Zach.
And they're gonna pull up a statistic that's like they're 3% less likely to buy deodorant than white people, and that means racism.
Go.
Everything's
Equity.
racist.
Yep.
This is a cool guy. I want to hang out with Corey Washington. If there's a riot, I'm hanging out right next to Corey Washington. He's where the good stuff's at too.
Yeah. Plus, he's cute.
That's all you.
And Zach, probably.
Yeah. Zach, did you visit Kenosha anytime recently?
No.
No. Sarah's asleep.
Huh?
For a bit,
Isn't that beanbag really comfortable? I slept on one today too.
Okay, I think this is that was Rosenbaum. Oh, no, it's Sam. The dude mimics Mario Hero, that's funny. I watched this yesterday, but it's still like
I go to this gas station all the time, so
I'm
hopefully
picking
it'll be
up, really
fine.
picking up on more things this time.
This is where I get cash out of the ATM, puts it across the street, it's more expensive. Indeed,
I was
bro.
literally saying that, and bitches got in my face. I'm like, bro, I was the one saying everyone calm down.
Everybody's just gonna have to agree to disagree, I think, man.
So what are they doing exactly? Just standing around?
Yeah, a lot of the alumni division. Standing around, waiting for shit to happen. Let's go burn down this courthouse. Nah, we did that yesterday. When the looting starts, when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
Mr. Washington, in that excerpt we just watched, I saw a number of individuals that were armed. Did you see that as well?
Yes.
And what was your understanding of
Who is
what
that
their
girl
purpose was on
screaming?
if you have one?
Crazy feminist.
I mean, honestly, I didn't talk to everyone individually, so I mean, it's
If you
hard
don't know,
to
that's
really
fine.
answer that.
Sure. It appeared to me that there were folks that had long rifles, like AR-15s. Are you familiar with those at all?
Yeah.
Did you see folks at the Ultimate gas station armed with that type of rifle?
Yes.
How many would you estimate you saw?
Yeah. Consistently at like one time or throughout a period of time?
At one time, that we're all there.
Maybe.
One time.
Yes. Maybe like 24, maybe a little more, something like that.
Why did it matter if they weren't doing
15
anything?
to 25 people.
Yeah,
All part of the narrative.
Just whatever.
I think he's trying to say, like, oh, well, all these people were here with guns,
Yep.
so what did Kyle do that made him stand out like that?
Yes, exactly, and
Well,
it's
walk by.
and the lone X factor is Rosenbaum. It's the guy who instigated all of this. It's the guy who was screaming, "I'm gonna kill all of you N-words." It's the guy who was like, "What are you doing? You're the guy who's attacking other people. You're the guy chasing after other people. You're the guy reaching for other people's weapons, trying to say, like, we're going to kill you when I find you." It was literally reported that when Rosenbaum had seen Rittenhouse and his buddies before all of this happened, he said, "If you guys end up alone tonight, I'm going to kill you." Like...
No,
That's
he
a
was clearly
direct threat.
violent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no.
That's a direct threat. That's clear violence. He absolutely did not care about the lives of somebody else, and it was very clear. And I think there's a lot of things that a lot of the context matters. We're talking about a lot of it here. There's going to be a lot more that comes out. So next, I want to talk about Richie McGinnis. So he had been running behind Rosenbaum when Rosenbaum started chasing after Rittenhouse. And he highlights exactly like what happened at the shooting. Because I guess there wasn't that much video footage of that. I got to look into it more. He recalled that Rittenhouse stopped, and that at that point, Rosenbaum had lunged for Rittenhouse's gun and threw his momentum toward the weapon. It was very clear to me that Rosenbaum was reaching specifically for the weapon because that's where his hands went. That's where, like, in it, his hand went. He said, "Fuck you," and then he reached for the weapon. And he said that that's right about when, that's when Rittenhouse shot. Said there could be various reasons for Rosenbaum to be reaching for a gun that was pointed at him, but he insisted that it actually was not pointed at him directly.
Oh.
That Rittenhouse originally was not going to shoot Rosenbaum, but when when Rosenbaum started running towards him, he started trying, well, not running toward, he was already running. When he tried to reach for the weapon, that's when things happened. That's when it was like, you said multiple times throughout the night that if you got me alone, you're going to kill me.
Not even that, you're laying hands on me, or you're trying to.
Exactly. In a moment that I know is kind of crazy, in a situation where if you get my weapon, because he was reaching for the barrel, that's another point that should be pointed out. He was reaching to try to grab the weapon. It wasn't like he was pushing it out of the way. It was, give me this. This is, I want to shoot you at this point. Like, what choice does Kyle have? What choice do you have? And I wanted, with my second post about Kyle Rittenhouse this week, I left it at the end saying, I hope you guys remember the way that you feel if you're ever put in this situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Just because it's like, this guy is defending his the place that he works at. He wants to make the place where he has to go every day a nice situation, a nice place. He wants to put down the violence. He was there on work to, another thing that Dems have been arguing about is it's all about property for him. It's no. There were people doing crazy things. He was trying to put an end to it. He was helping out people. He was providing aid. He was providing CPR. He was doing whatever.
But no, he was a horrible person.
It's just...
Right, it's not the people that are destroying people's entire livelihoods that are the horrible people. It's the guy that was trying to protect himself to save his own life.
Yes. Rosenbaum was recklessly endangering many people's lives. He was setting dumpsters on fire and hurling them at police officers.
Right. It's like, it's one thing to like maybe ram into police officers with the dumpster in your hands, like controlled. But when it's out of control, you don't know where it's going to go. You don't know where it's going to end up.
You don't know what could happen.
Right.
If they have some sort of gas that could react with fire, it could blow up everything.
Like imagine if it stopped right at a gas pump and started melting the hoses.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden,
I've seen so many videos of how detrimental that is. Yeah.
Right. Like it's stupid.
Exactly.
It's actually stupid. And I think, this isn't about the trial, but I think it needs to be held responsible to local and state officials too.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, like, this could have been prevented if you kept your citizens in control.
Exactly.
Okay, it's one thing to go out during the day and protest. It's another thing to go out and riot.
Arson.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as
Looting,
soon as those riots started is when it should have been shut down.
Exactly.
As the looting starts, the shooting starts.
But I also see how, like, police could be afraid to do anything because...
Absolutely. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
Right. And I understand that. But at the end of the day, then you need to talk to your state legislator. Because at the end of the day, it's, okay, why aren't your police doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
Like, what do we need to be doing better? What do we need to change?
We need to be, I think, shooting the cell phones out of feminists a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because it's just, put the phone down, stop being offended. Not everything is offense worthy.
Oh,
please stop.
Was it? I was watching something and they were talking about, I can't remember even where it was, but this guy got on a train and raped this woman. Like, raped her. Like, full on, like, sexual assault rape.
I think it was by anal, too.
No, this is on, like, a train somewhere. Like, public transportation on the middle of a train.
Anal.
Oh.
It was just the middle of the day.
No.
on a train in front of tons of people. Like the
Yep.
entire car of people saw what was going on. All they did was film it. No one tried to stop it. Nothing happened until they got to the next stop.
There's a big SVU episode on that as well, where it's a woman was raped right in the middle of an alleyway, but nobody's bothered to look outside at the screaming and
Yeah,
this
I
and
learned that in
that.
my psychology class. There's a bystander issue. However, I think it's gotten worse now because of these
100%.
things.
Because instead of
Absolutely.
saying the first thing I need to do is call the police or get this person help, the first thing that they're doing now is pulling out their phones and recording.
Yeah, they're not
Yep.
even assuming, oh, somebody else will
World
call the police,
star.
like they did
Right.
with that
like
alleyway
they're
thing.
just trying to get their 5 minutes of fame
Yes. And that's
with a
because,
viral video.
and I think that's part of like our economic collapse, where it's like we care more about TikTok fame and
Mm-hmm.
how many likes and clicks we get. My whole goal of this is not to become big and this and that. It's to inform people. I hope people can listen to my podcast, can watch my posts and say, oh, I actually learned something. I know what's going on.
Yeah, and like my
Right.
point of being here is to be like, you're not alone. Like
Yeah.
of the things that you think
That's
I'm
another
helping
thing, yeah,
people
absolutely.
speak out because a lot of us are quiet, silent majority.
Exactly. We're all trying to inform. We're trying to make, people aware of what's going on. And just because it's important. Things that are going on, let's be real about this stuff. Let's be logical about our issues and about the things that are going well in our country.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So Ryan Balch is another guy who took the stand this week. These past 2 weeks. He was the guy who was with the Rittenhouse party, like the party of people that were protecting the building. He's an ex-military member. He was the guy who pretty much described Rosenbaum's behavior throughout the entire
Oh, okay.
entirety. He was originally said to be hyper-aggressive, Rosenbaum, specifically.
Yeah,
He was
rightfully
just-
so.
Mm-hmm. Just throughout the night, he was just yelling. He was one quote that he pulled up, which I mentioned before. If I catch you guys alone tonight, I'm going to fucking kill you. Yeah.
Wow.
He also testified that he saw Rosenbaum acting in a violent manner, shouting curse words and trying to light more dumpsters on fire.
Are you gonna also highlight Rosenbaum in general? Like he just left the mental hospital, and
Yeah,
that he's also
exactly.
a pedophile,
Exactly.
and
He was a pedophile. He raped 5 different kids. He was just. I
well,
don't,
obviously these people didn't know that,
See,
but
I
this
don't
is just
wanna-
the character of this guy.
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily go into that field just because let's talk about the events of that night,
Yeah.
Right.
because that was not preconceived notions,
That's something
Agreed.
else the prosecution tried to do. They
Yep.
keep trying to bring up Kyle Rittenhouse's TikTok account and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to say, like, oh, well, he's only doing it for the fame. That's the only reason he went out and did all this. And the judge is like, will you stop? Like, will you just stop?
Yeah,
Right.
that
Mhm.
has nothing to do with
Right.
this.
He
Yeah.
said
No.
that is
That's why
literally
he
something that
hasn't
happened
mentioned the
4 months
pedophilia
ago.
of
Not
this guy.
The year ago that we're discussing and looking at.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, it's so stupid. Like, the prosecution just needs to, like, he just needs to not be a lawyer anymore. Can we disbar this
just-
prosecutor?
They're trying to
Yeah,
play
he's
in the
so
TikTok.
bad.
They're trying to play TikTok.
It's kind of
judge.
funny though.
It is kind of funny.
It's stupid. Can we get a judicial system? Can we get due process? Can we have the
Right.
facts of the case presented? And not I hate it. It's really just, you see this trial, you watch what's going on, and you just feel bad for anybody that could ever go through this. And it's
Right.
a wake-up call to say anybody could go through this.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can be put in this situation. So let's speak up. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're talking about this, because this is happening. This can happen to anybody. Kyle Rittenhouse is 17 years old, and he's just a random kid from Kenosha.
Yeah, and I
Look
know
at
a
his
lot of
life at this
liberals that
point.
are looking at this and they realize, like, hey, I was wrong. I think the Young
Absolutely.
Turks said something about that too. Is
Yeah.
that Young
They did.
Turks?
I
Yeah,
have no clue.
something.
Yeah, Anna from that show finally
Yeah.
admitted she's wrong, and it's like, yeah,
That's
you guys
it.
ran
Yeah,
with
thank
the,
you.
you guys ran with this from the beginning, and it's been wrong. We've been telling you it's wrong. Look into the stuff more.
Right. Like, I think if there's one thing that should never change, it should be your judicial system. Like, if you have a system that actually works and puts away criminals and frees the innocent if they're found guilty and, you know, it turns out that they were innocent, why are you trying to change that?
Exactly.
Like, why? I really don't get it. Like, we had a fair justice system.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's been touched and fondled by Joe Biden and the other Democrats.
Absolutely.
And this is what we're stuck with now.
Yeah.
It's like, until we can fix the judicial system, I don't think anything else can be fixed.
There's a lot of systems that need to be fixed.
Yes, but the issue is, I mentioned this before we started recording, that if the judicial system is there and Biden is just not going to follow it, just not going to listen to what the law says, and then 6 months later, once the bill already passed, or once the bill already went through and people already changed their lives to react this way, it doesn't matter if the judicial system says.
Right.
To him, it doesn't matter. Because if you can just skirt by BS unconstitutional laws by just waiting 6 more months.
Right. By just saying, oh, do it anyway.
Like the eviction moratoriums.
Like the COVID vaccine mandate.
Exactly.
Lots of things.
Yeah. These people were forced to get vaccines without any actual mandatory, anything mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
Just ridiculous.
It's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a break.
Yep. We're doing pretty good with these. So I definitely wanted to talk about the education system. I've always been passionate about it. Even though I was a straight A student, I was always criticizing the things that we were taught in school. Is it really something that we should be learning, or maybe something else that we should be learning instead?
Boring.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I personally loved school, but there's a lot of kids who didn't. Most kids didn't.
I did well in school. There was, it just wasn't challenging. It wasn't something that, like, you wanted to learn about the stuff. And that's something that I struggled with my first few years of college as well, where it's like...
Yeah, same.
It's just getting through this stuff is like, what am I using this for? What am I, like...
Exactly. Yeah, so I definitely want to start off with math. Math was, I talked to many people to see like what their views were on it. I honestly think we should keep algebra. I think it is necessary because of critical thinking. I think even though I hated it, I can see how it benefited me when I went to college, or even in general, like just the critical thinking.
I get you.
So what do you think?
I didn't hate math. I didn't hate algebra. I thought, I
like algebra 1 and 2, and I think those should be like
they definitely help
required
with
in like regions and stuff.
They
Exactly. They help with everything for trig and geometry, which I also want to include. Maybe we should do less of trig and geometry. Do you really think there was I think that's only good for people who plan on being like engineers. Yeah. Right?
Proofs were the death of my math career. Proofs were the thing that made me no longer care about math.
Yeah, logs for me. I just couldn't do it.
I didn't. Well,
and I just didn't like it.
See, logs came after geometry for me, so it was like, I was too far gone at that point.
Yeah, and I liked geometry. Don't get me wrong, but it was like. There's no point. I never used it ever.
I did really well in parts of geometry. I did really well up until we got to proofs. When we got to proofs, it was explaining how this is a triangle. It's a triangle. I didn't, and the whole thing is, being very, very technical. It's like, I can tell you what a triangle is. I can tell you why it's a triangle. I can tell you that it's because it's got these angles and it's got this and that. But I can't, I don't know how you specifically want me to say it. And it's like, that's...
Right, and to be honest, how is that useful?
Exactly. It was crazy.
How is that useful? Unless you plan on being an engineer, which honestly I think we should... maybe push those for college for those people who want to take it.
School choice, choices with what you're learning about in school.
And I definitely think we should mention school choice in different section for sure, because it alone, I highly support it for so many reasons. I think we should replace trig and geometry for for high schoolers, and maybe replace it with how taxes work, or how to budget, or how to do more money management. I think that would be
more commerce classes, more,
more
classes.
beneficial for the individual, which I do want to briefly mention that schools are really meant to be for society rather than for the individual.
Yeah.
Now, how do you guys feel about that? Because I personally think it should be more on an individual highlight.
I disagree.
Yeah?
I think it should be a societal thing. I think if we're going to be paying this much money into a school system, if we're going to be doing this school system, this public school system, then it should be geared towards getting these people fit for society.
For society. I see what you mean. I also see that, like, our American values are very individualistic.
Yeah, and I agree. But I'm saying, school is supposed to teach you the basic fundamentals of life. It's supposed to teach you the basic building blocks of stuff. So I think that's where we should keep it at. I think you should be allowed to look into different building blocks, but I don't necessarily think I think there could be more choices, and I agree with you on that, but I do think that these kids still need to, I think we should be aiming them towards society, because if not, then that's how you get craziness in society. That's how you get a society of unkempt people.
Yeah, like liberal arts degrees and stuff like that.
Yes,
I see what
exactly.
you mean. Yeah,
So
because it's like that's more fun than something with math and whatever.
But these still, English and science and, they can all teach you certain things of life and certain things of society that just help. Like, psychology is considered science. Mm-hmm. The way that people think is very important in life, I believe. It's still one of the classes that I very much recommend. Like, when you're going to college, take at least one psychology class.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just something to help you understand the way that other people think better.
Yeah.
Because you might think that it's just the way that people think. But no, it gets you to really be conscientious about the things that other people say, other people do. You truly can put it into another perspective when you psychologically can think of the ways that other people think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think we should keep stuff like I know I'm doing more focus on high school, so like a focus on math, history, science, and English. Those are like the main four. Mm-hmm. And in a different segment, I definitely want to talk about like extracurricular activities too. That I feel like there should be more options.
We're gonna go through
so that kids can figure out what do I like or what do I want to do with my life. Exactly. I think we need a more focus on that because I felt like I was not as prepared or told what I need to focus on rather than what do I want.
See, yeah. And I think we have somewhat shied away. I think we both pretty much want the same thing, where it's like we want people to individually get the same things. We want people to get something individually to get something out of school. But I think we need to teach people how to live in society then. We need to teach people how you can be in this society and do something with your life. How you can
See, I agree with you on that, except I don't agree with the way that they're doing it now.
No, not at all.
What am I going to need trig for in my everyday life? Algebra, I could see. That's fine.
Yeah, algebra.
Geometry, whatever. That stuff is fine. That's to do with stuff that you're going to work with all day, every day. Mm-hmm. But when you get to stuff like
calculus, trigonometry.
Calculus and trig, that's more specialized.
Right.
Yeah.
I took calculus. I don't even know why I needed to take calculus for computer science.
I had to take it for my psych degree. Right. Why?
I mean, I guess I get why I have to take it for calculus, but I guess I don't at the same time. I don't know. It's weird to explain. But, why do... And not that everyone is taking calculus in high school, but, I had a bunch of friends who did. Mm-hmm. I also had a bunch of friends who took a whole bunch of higher level science courses.
Because what else was there to do? I already was done. I was a year ahead in math, and there was nothing else to do in math, and so they said, "Oh, why don't you take calculus then?" Okay, sure.
But I mean, those were your interests throughout your lifetime. Those were things that you, as a young kid, were interested in math. So you progressed all the way until 12th grade when you were proficient at math ahead of
Yeah,
other
because I knew
kids.
I was going into college, so I definitely want to prepare myself for that.
Exactly. So, that's when you
I feel like
start
they should
targeting
be
certain things.
available, but I feel like it
Exactly.
shouldn't be required. I knew for sure that trig and geometry was required, and I don't really think that should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
One point that I want to bring up is that, like, there's a constant argument that there's not enough money in a school budget for this extracurricular and this extracurricular and this and that. So a part of the reasons why they teach certain classes instead of others is because they don't have the infrastructure to teach other classes. They don't have a teacher that's proficient enough in one class, in one subject, to teach that class. And they might not have enough kids to recommend that much paper, that much whatever.
Yeah.
So that's another issue where we get to, but yeah, it very much should be basic building blocks of what you need in life, and that's
Right, and if they were able to change, I don't know how it is in different states, but I knew New York State made us do Common Core. I missed it, thank God, but that was a total different way of doing math, and a lot of kids failed because they were so used to learning it a certain way, and then all of a sudden in high school or middle school they had to change it up.
Yeah.
And it's like, why don't we just start from kindergarten and teach that generation from then on?
Well, that's what they're trying to do with this Common Core stuff now, where it's I wonder how old those kids are at this point. We got to look into it. How old are the kids that started off with Common Core?
So I think Common Core started like, what, 5? Oh, no.
My class
7,
was the last
8 years
class
ago?
before Common Core started.
My sister was in an elementary school when Common Core started.
2016
And I was a
when
grade
I
ahead,
graduated,
so
2013,
Okay, so 2013. 2012, 2013?
something
Yeah.
like that. That's when I started.
Oh, so
high
it's almost
school.
10 years, though.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which means that kids
That's
are
when I
now in 9th grade,
started.
which means we're just about done with the K-12 cycle for Common Core.
Yeah.
Which means
But I
that,
felt like the ones that were already in high school should not have...
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, they
It
should have
shouldn't
just
have been
continued with
Yeah.
what they were supposed to do.
You
and
start off in kindergarten, and then every year
when
you
they
change the
are
curriculum.
sponges. They are literally sponges.
Well, every year you add the next year's curriculum.
Right,
Yep.
what they did is they said to everyone that had already learned how to count, do multiplication and everything the normal way of doing it, they said, yeah, just forget, the last, 9 years or whatever it was of education that you just went through in math. You're going to start from square one. And have to do it.
And have to do that level of math still.
See,
it
and I
wasn't
think-
like kindergarten level math at
Right.
9th grade.
Exactly.
And that was I think that was the big issue with Common Core, and with the switch to Common Core, it's that
They didn't
kids
do it right.
kids are young. Kids all necessarily they need to know the processes of how to do stuff in order to actually know how to do stuff. They're young. That's the best time for them to learn how to do that kind of stuff. So if you randomly switch that process on them, it's going to stunt their growth for the rest of
Absolutely. And I know that the kids in my grade that weren't level higher like I was, they would have to do both the regions and the Common Core test. And they always failed the Common Core, but they had to study for both. It's just like, that's so inefficient. It's inefficient.
See, and I feel like in ways it taught certain kids to say, I'm not smart enough. I'm not this or that just because I
Absolutely.
don't think the same way. And it's like, it's bubble crap doesn't work for everybody.
It really does not.
Some people are very hardwired. Zach and I are both in very similar fields, and in ways I was always number means number. This means that, and that's always been the way that I've seen it, and it makes sense. It makes sense to me in that way. The multiplication tables, that was the way I learned, and that really helped me. Because it was this will always equal that, no matter what. And
but now that they do things that prepare them for algebra, so it's instead of 15 plus 25, they would do minus 5 from the 20, and then add it to the other side.
This is my
It was
thing.
so weird.
Is algebra really that hard that they have to be prepared that early for it?
Honestly, I don't think so.
Like, don't
it in
get me
better ways.
wrong. Like,
I mean, algebra was hard. Algebra 2, I
scraped
cried.
That is the
through
reason
math.
why.
Scraped through math. I was terrible at math. It was the lowest thing on my grade on like the report card every
Wow.
time.
Pathetic.
The lowest. And
Zach, you're
even
dumb.
I could do algebra. Like, come on now.
Oh,
Like,
wow. Yeah,
granted,
especially
it's the
the
lowest
basic
grade,
ones.
But I
Ah,
still knew what I was doing at the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basic algebra wasn't
You know?
too bad.
Yeah, so I feel like algebra definitely is a keeper in like high school, but honestly, I think we should replace trig and geometry with like how to do your own taxes and money management, and also like
You know
maybe
what?
learn about market stimulation, like retirement
Economics.
plans, and
Let's-
economics.
Like,
Oh yeah, I'm
I'm-
definitely gonna mention that here
Yeah,
too.
No.
like we need to teach people economics.
Absolutely, because the
Biden-
class that I took wasn't even required.
Yeah, neither
So
was
I
mine.
think it should be a requirement.
Biden tells people who lose their jobs to learn to code. That is something that they should be teaching in schools.
Absolutely.
From a young age.
Right.
I agree.
Like, why? Okay, if you want people to learn to code so bad, why aren't you putting it in school?
Right. Because that's what the future is going towards right now. And that's where we go back to benefiting society. Do you think it should be required for everybody
Okay.
to do
so,
coding?
yes, it's been proven that you learn code the best and you learn language the best when you are a young kid. You learn code because code is another language. It's a writing
It's
language.
like math.
I've
Yeah.
written
It's not
essays on
not
this
necessarily
topic.
like math. It's more of it's a way of thinking. It's the way that you speak and write.
it teaches you how to think.
Yes. It gives you you're
what
giving
Steve
out
Jobs
commands
said.
to a system.
Okay.
And you have to know how to command that system. So
Mm-hmm.
if you teach these kids at a very young age how to do that,
Yeah, I feel like if
Everybody
we
will
are
know how to
teaching
code.
them, it shouldn't start at middle school. It shouldn't start at high school. I think it should start in elementary.
yeah,
I think coding can be a really fun thing for kids, especially
Absolutely,
like
yes.
if you have kids that are very like imaginative. Like, let them
They
express
can
their
make
creativity
stuff.
with code.
create apps.
Right.
You can have little things like back when coding was really starting to blow up when we were like really young. I remember there was this program where like you can program this robot to move around and this and that.
I got one of those for my nephew, actually.
Exactly. It's like
And
that
I
was-
honestly
for
want to
Christmas.
try, but I know it'd be a lot harder for me to learn than
No.
somebody who's
Do it.
way younger.
go do it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Do it.
I mean,
Why?
I dropped
You'll
out
figure
of
it out.
school, but
Oh
I'm doing like the
I'm-
Code Academy online stuff.
Hold on,
and
I-
it's
Yeah.
simple, easy. It's.
I can also
I mean, then again,
I can
what
give you my
coding
lecture
language
slides
is.
as well.
no. Yeah,
But I
but
have
I
for
don't
it.
really have an interest in it. I tried making a video game, and I told you about that
I
night of
hate it.
coding.
It's
But
the
I
future.
tried doing
People need it.
video game in my technology class, and again, this class was like brief, so it wasn't like really so much of a requirement. And it was like brief in middle school actually, so it wasn't even in high school for me. The high school I went to, and I absolutely hated it because I just I didn't understand at all what I was typing.
Yeah, and I mean, but
It just wasn't for me.
I understand that, but it's gonna have to be. It's the future. Everybody's gonna have to know at least some sort of code. In the
Yeah,
future.
I don't think we
Yeah?
need to teach everyone like extremely
No,
advanced coding.
exactly.
Like that's what like later education is for.
Exactly.
But I think at least by the end of middle school, you need to at least be able to code a program in Python. Like I'm not saying you need to be able to do something like build
Yeah.
a system that can handle
Okay,
billions
so
of
like
dollars in
basics, like
transactions.
the basics
Exactly.
in math, history,
Yes.
science,
Right.
English.
Like the same thing we do for like math, history, science, and English, we should be doing for code and computers.
Think about it kind of like Word.
Yeah.
Think about it like
yeah, Word.
everybody had to learn how to be.
Yeah, I didn't learn how
efficient.
to do Word until college, and that was
Exactly.
definitely useful, and it's useful for
Exactly.
a lot of jobs.
It's good. Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah,
Okay.
you're gonna see code start to creep into almost every job because
So
you're
do
gonna
you
see a lot more
consider
automation.
Word coding precisely? I mean,
What?
I know you're giving them like functions and stuff, but it's not necessarily the
Wait,
It can be. Like, it depends on what you're doing. So not necessarily in Word, but in Excel.
Excel, yeah.
You can do things
Yeah.
like macros. That's technically coding within Excel. But
I wasn't
I
saying
wouldn't
that.
say like doing like the functions would be coding.
I'm
Okay.
saying think of coding, the topic of coding as like learning Word when you were a kid. That's the way that I see it in the future, where it's going to be more of like this will be useful in your life in a lot of other fields.
It-
so we're
it
just
definitely
gonna so
is,
we're just
yeah.
going to teach you how to do basic functioning of it.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see that. I
Like,
agree with that. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Where it's, I think that's where we're headed towards. And I think it just makes sense where if you're going to tell people who are 45 to learn how to code, why don't you teach kids? Why don't you
Right.
make it a topic? Because you already have computer labs in most schools. You already have this and that.
Absolutely.
Python is
Coding
free.
languages are free.
I was
They're
going to say,
all open source and free.
you can teach Python to everybody. Python
Right.
is free.
You can literally, for the younger students, like, K through 3, whatever, you can do Scratch.
Yeah.
Scratch is a program by MIT and it's based in blocks.
Mm-hmm.
You can upload your own sprites or animations or, whatever, and you can literally do everything you do with code with these little blocks.
Now,
and
You
it's
can find
super easy
SQL.
for kids.
how
You
would
can
this
find
be
SQL
beneficial
as well.
for me? Like in
Like Scratch,
any sort of coding?
coding, I mean, like you're doing all the real estate stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could use code to build your own database of available listings and their prices. And you could use an algorithm to sort them based on what you already own. Stuff that's similar, stuff that's, something that's going to be a little bit more risky, some stuff that's really low risk. You can take in.
And the computer would calculate that based on the
Oh,
functions
yeah.
you give them?
See, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
and the quicker that these processes are getting, the more and more we're going to use coding. So I believe that we really will see a time when coding will be a part of your lifetime.
Just like using
part
a
of your life.
computer is
Exactly.
more of a part of our life now than it was 50 years
right.
ago.
Exactly.
Okay.
Coding is going to be a part of just, instead of me writing out this Word document, I'm going to do this and I'm going to pull up the information from this website by pulling out this instead of doing this or that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, and we might get to certain programming languages that are very, very simple, where it's, it'll automatically pull this programming language because you already said this. You know what I mean? Do you get kind of what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Where it'll
A lot of
automate
it does
automate
that
coding.
now.
No, exactly.
Like there's a service yeah. It's called Replit. It's what I use to
Yep.
do like my coding stuff. And
I hate REPL.
So do you
sometimes.
think this should be
so
like
bad.
like
So
in
bad
the
sometimes.
thing of math, or do you think it's like of technology? It
I think
should
it
be
should be a
required.
separate course.
Yeah.
Like there should be a technology course.
Because I was gonna
Okay.
mention it in the extracurricular topic that I'll mention, but if it's that, you guys are making it seem like it is very important.
I
So
think it
maybe
is.
it should be its own
I mean,
necessary
think about it.
class.
Everything nowadays has a computer in it.
That's
Everything is
true.
coded.
And kids
Only
are
a
using
small
a
percentage
lot.
of people know how to
Okay.
actually make those things do what they want them to do and know how to work them.
Exactly.
So,
I just see it as a natural progression. I just see it as soon enough we're all going to be able to understand that.
And then
So
like
it's-
have
Yeah.
teachers that teach that
So we're
stuff.
pretty much saying like, hey, we're in the early stages right now.
we need to get it right.
This is
Now.
going, yeah, exactly. China's beating us. This is going to become a thing where,
Are they doing this in China?
absolutely, of course.
Wow.
So yeah, I
Interesting.
think we should be teaching.
I
our
think
kids
so
how to
too.
code.
Then because then like I said, it's pretty outdated. The
With
stuff that we're learning
right.
now, like trig and geometry. Do we really need to? I don't think so.
Right.
With so many jobs moving to automation, just knowing how to handle that automation can
Right.
automate this task
Exactly.
is important,
Yeah.
and
I
it will
mean-
be beneficial for our kids.
Right. And
It's
I
the
mean,
best
there is
time to
stuff
teach 'em.
like
That's the thing to me.
when it comes to like their classes too, like they're going to be able to do their homework so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Oh yeah, I'm having some trouble with this function
Mhm.
or like this, math equation. Let me just code something up really quick and see if I can get that to give me the right answer so I can
Yeah.
better see how it works.
Exactly.
Some people are going to take advantage of that, save that program, and use it to cheat on their exams. But we'll have to figure out ways around that, just like we found ways.
Oh
around
well, I
all sorts of
used
cheating.
Excel. There were like certain calculators
Oh, yeah.
online, and I was so sick of using the websites. So I was like, okay, let me see what the calculators are doing and how they're doing the math, and do it in my own Excel sheet. That's what I.
But that's
I did.
exactly pretty much what coding will become, where it's
Like
I'm sick of
that.
doing
What
this
you
thing.
did for that is what you do.
Like
to
you're
write
just
code.
plugging in formulas rather than having to memorize a formula and then
But,
having to
yeah.
why do we need, and also like with calculators that they want to do. How do you guys feel about like mental math as much? I
hate
like
mental math.
I like the mental math, but
I'm
is it
really
really
slow with it.
necessary when we have calculators? Like I know
Right.
it says we shouldn't depend on something to do the math for us.
My thing is,
But-
I think you should know how to do it.
That's exactly what it is. I think it's
Yeah.
the functionality of it. I think it's teaching you the process. It's
Right.
teaching you I need to do this times this, and this helps me understand it a little bit better. But I don't think it's necessary to like.
I
You
think what
shouldn't.
it is. Sorry, I think what it is it's like you can say, okay, no calculators from like this grade to this grade because you actually need to know how to do these multiplication tables, your additions, your
I agree.
subtractions.
Yeah.
You need to know how to do PEMDAS.
But what about, like,
and
high
all
school?
Of this stuff. But once you get to high school and you start just building on that stuff, like actually starting to use that in like
In like algebra.
I think
why can't you use a calculator to do your multiplication?
The time
why do I
alone.
need to be able to do that in my head at that
Why do I
point?
have to write it all down? Or the division too.
the
Like,
time
why?
alone. Yeah, I was always multiplication was very simple, but like division, I would usually have to write it out. That takes time.
It does long division.
Think about how much quicker.
I don't even know
yeah.
if they do that anymore in Common Core.
But
I don't think they
there's
do.
some weird way about it. I know my
Yeah.
sister did not have like the way that we did long division, where I would just be like, yeah, you just keep.
Oh yeah, you
going
just
to the
keep.
next number.
Yeah,
Where they did like something where like they had to circle different shit.
yeah, and I would try to help my little sister too. And I'm just like, why can't you guys just do it this way? It's so much easier. Whatever. I don't know. So I definitely want to mention the rest of the necessary language classes. History. Now I sucked at history, so maybe you guys can bring up a little something.
Global history was terrible for me, but American history was awesome.
Now, do you think global history should still be recommended?
No, screw global
Really?
history.
No,
I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. I'm
I was
global.
about to say, wait, what?
What? Because I think we need to know.
Right.
But I agree that
Going
everything that
left
we
on us.
learned in history, honestly, or at least I learned in history, was required. It should be required. Global history, American history. I think we should also squeeze in economics as requirement in history.
Oh, 100%.
I believe we do in some senses. I think we do discuss
like economic classes.
I don't necessarily think it needs to be squeezed in with history. I think we need to have a whole separate subject of economics.
When I was
You
when
think
we were,
so?
See, that's where like some thoughts are, but
Because I want to combine, like, with present day stuff. Like, how can we compare the history with present day or present day
like
with
we
history?
always talked about economics with all of these countries. Like we always talked about the trade that they did. We always talked when we
My
did
school
global.
didn't.
Yes, they
I'm
did.
not
Yeah.
saying,
When you were
like,
talking about
economics
hold on.
isn't like they're trading. I'm talking like how the actual economy works, like an actual
Exactly.
economics course.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so, like,
To what
after you
extent?
take...
Because I do believe that when you're taking history classes, like from taking business classes, you learn what you're supposed to of economics from these history classes.
No, I think you should take I took like a micro and a macroeconomics. I'm not saying like do that to high schoolers.
Oh, no, I
But
think
that's
that
what
should
I'm
be
saying, like,
required.
what
Because
level
that
do
would
we
have
say
helped
that
me
to?
understand the world a
I
lot
think it
better.
should be at least what was it, macroeconomics that focuses
Yeah.
like on an individual country.
But I'm saying
macroeconomics should be taught at high school.
Like, I was thinking American history, 9th grade, or I think it was global first. Global in 9th grade, American history, 10th grade, like macro and then microeconomics.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I
macro
took any
and micro
history
could
classes
be
after
put
that.
into one.
Yeah.
For high school, at least. Because you don't need to go as in-depth as it was in college.
Well, I just took
See,
micro.
That's the whole thing. I don't.
And that was a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I understand teaching kids the basics of economics is important, but I really don't believe that kids will be as benefited from taking full
But
economics.
how are they going to be
like-
prepared for society if they don't know how the economy
Yeah,
works?
I learned so much about like medicine,
Right.
and
Again.
you shouldn't really be pricing that up and stuff. And I think you did something too like this where you had to pretend you had your own business or something, or
Oh, yeah, I did that in a business class, not necessarily economics. What I
Okay.
did for economics in high school is I took a college course for it. I took the SUNY ESF. It's the SUNY Environmental Science and Forestry College at Syracuse University.
Okay.
I took their course on how economics and the environment are tied together. And one of the projects that I had to do was how the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, or whatever they call it.
yeah, I've never learned about
Um,
that.
I had to write a 10-page paper on how that affects the U.S. economy.
Wow.
And it was
See,
honestly
that's
pretty cool.
beneficial. I like that a lot.
I don't think that necessarily has to happen for all the kids.
like that specifically, but
Right. But,
I-
learning how everyday things can tie into the economy, like, even the smallest things that you don't think of.
Yeah.
Like, a simple car accident can hurt an economy, not necessarily a mass economy. Like, it's not going to, like, a accident outside of our, where we're recording isn't going to affect the economy in California, but it certainly could affect our economy here, because
But I
how
think
many
that
people are
ties into
involved?
history. I think that ties into just let's talk about the economic systems of of different countries. Let's talk about the ways that different countries succeeded. Obviously, it's what you pull from what you learn. When your professor or your teacher talks about trade, trade was a mingling of people, was a mingling of of cultures. So that's pretty much what we have here. That's what we have in America, where we have free market trade, and that has allowed us to have a lot more diversity and a lot more variation in this and that. So I understand like the need for certain economic theories and certain this and that, but I think
do you think it should
does
be more like
strongly-
government based rather than economics based? And then briefly mention economics in the government classes?
I'm confused by I don't think kids need to learn as much in economics as we kind of make it out to be at times. I understand we wish kids were more prepared in some aspects, but it's also you got to pull certain things from what your schooling is. You've got to pull some responsibility, because at the end of the day, being good with your economics is mostly being responsible. It's mostly being responsible yourself. So it's not necessarily if you're getting all of these market theories from an economics class, that's not necessarily going to make you better in the real world. That's not going to necessarily make you more financially savvy.
That's true.
I don't think it's necessarily to give them more skills as to how
It's
to
just to
navigate
understand
it,
how America
but understanding
works.
how it works. But
I think that's
what
where-
you're seeing is everyone in Congress is just printing more and more money, and no one seems to realize
Or the
how
15 minimum
I mean,
wage.
current
How is that
actual
good?
real issue that
Like,
is.
how is that good? And
So
it-
current events maybe more. We talk about more and about how certain things, but I still think it's tied to history, where we just need to focus on the governments of how things work, how things have gone, and what can we pull from that. Maybe we
Okay.
can put more of an economic focus on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at least
so-
more of a focus.
But do you guys get what I'm saying though?
Yeah.
In that sense, where it's I don't necessarily. They don't need to know how the GDP is calculated. They don't need to know how.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
no,
think
that
that's
not
necessary.
like the
No, I
It's
understand.
just
mathematical
more
parts.
of this is what the GDP is. This is how we calculate it.
Yeah,
but you're
that
not
was
being tested
really
on how to
helpful.
calculate
So
in
maybe
my
we can do
economics
more
class.
in American history about
Right.
more of a. But I don't think that we should necessarily delegate a budget for I feel like there are bits and pieces of economics that are important for kids sprinkled
I think it would
into
depend
history.
on like the grade and everything.
Yes.
Like obviously, like high schoolers, there should.
I think it should
maybe
be
like a
focused
separate
on
class.
seniors.
Yeah.
I just and going back to the math part, like the taxes and budgeting and money management.
Oh yeah.
I think that should be specifically on seniors. Didn't you take a class in like your junior or senior year where it was like the most beneficial class you ever learned, or maybe it was my boyfriend. Maybe he talked
I don't
about.
think I took.
Yeah,
anything
no,
like
he
that.
took a class that like taught him about finances and how to write checks and stuff like that, and I think that's helpful.
Oh yeah, I never did that. The actual thing that taught me how to write checks was when I started as a cashier at Wegmans.
Are you serious?
Yep. Nope. Never learned how to
They
write
briefly
checks.
taught us in 5th grade, which we all
Yeah.
did not care about.
See,
I
Like,
don't even
why
think-
5th grade?
that's
I don't
another.
know if they taught us that. Maybe they did, and I just don't remember.
That's something that I was going to
Exactly.
mention, where we learned about like economics at a very, very young age, and then didn't.
When we
pick it
didn't
back
even
up.
understand how
Exactly.
money really
Yes.
works.
Yes,
Or
and
the
then we-
value of money.
And then we picked it back up later on.
I think that's the point. They don't want us
That
to
we
know
did.
it. They don't want
Yeah.
us to be able to.
Oh yeah, we
control our
taught them
It
when they
makes a
were
lot more
super
s- yeah.
young, when they didn't even have jobs.
It makes us much more dependent on them and their aid for whatever welfare checks.
I mean, it
food
sounds great.
packages.
Free healthcare, free this, free that.
but
But nothing
it
is
sucks.
ever really free.
No.
Right.
And it's the free market has always shown to provide better quality, better better quality of life for everybody, just because there's more of a drive for people to get stuff. If you have no way of benefiting from trying to do something, you're not going to do it. That's just the way that life has shown to be. And it's if there are caps on how much you can do and how much it's not a market for something for growth. It's not a market for getting better at the things that you need to get better at. Us shying away from a free market is not going to benefit
Right.
us in any
Not
way.
at all. Yeah, and I wish I would have known about like our market, honestly. Like what I never understood what bonds, stocks are. I never understood, but I've heard it.
Right.
Like when I played the game of life or Monopoly, I always heard about these things, but I never knew what they meant until I watched PragerU.
But
Thank you,
yeah.
Zach.
see, you bring that up. To me, that's where I first learned about that stuff. When I was playing the game of life, because I was like, oh, I put this money in a bond and then over time it gives me money.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like I go to college and then it gives me more choices with this and that.
Yeah,
so like
with jobs.
yeah. So like
I love
even
that
little
game.
games like Monopoly. My dad, funny story. My dad and I used to play Monopoly all the time. He was one of those dads that would never let you win, and I was very thankful for that because it
We
actually
should
made
play
you.
sometime.
That would be dope. I would be down
love
for that.
Monopoly.
We do a drinking Monopoly. We record it.
Oh my god.
Maybe somebody in the area in Buffalo who's
I
watching
call
this
being the
podcast.
banker.
Oh boy.
Oh, I love.
You were just talking about how you don't know that much about economics. I don't know if we're going to be doing this.
Well, all I'm doing is the money part.
The money part, the least important part of Monopoly. But yeah, Sarah and I were actually talking about this the other, either today or the other day, about how like we haven't played Monopoly in a while, and that's a fun time. But like, that taught me just how to like, oh, if I budget my money and get more, this or that, just different theories of like, if I play with my money different ways, I can do different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like just those little games, like, if you're pulling certain things from them, like, they are beneficial, like, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I'd like to go back now and try to be like, I play sometimes Monopoly with my friends and like Life and stuff, because it's like, it is kind of cool to now think about it, like, how will
Yeah,
I
now it
do
makes
it
more
now?
sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, and I do want to go into science, but I believe you have mentioned this. Now, I again did not pay attention in history. That there might be some indoctrination. I know that it was definitely science, which I would like to talk about, but is there any indoctrination things you wanted to mention about history? Like, you said that
Yeah, so I don't know that it's like an everywhere thing, but in my middle school, like 7th and 8th grade, The only thing that lady talked about in history was slavery, unless there was something that had to be taught.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing that she covered. Like,
It should definitely be mentioned. It's definitely an important part of our history and
but I don't
world
think
history.
It should be the only thing to be taught.
Exactly. So for that whole year, you were taught that?
Whole 2 years.
This was
just
my
American,
God.
and not even slavery like worldwide. It was only American slavery.
Yeah.
So that was when you were learning American history in general, and all of that was being used for slave stuff instead of American history,
slavery,
other things,
like the time and era of slavery. Yeah.
See, and that's an issue that I kind of have where we are somewhat indoctrinating kids to believe that like we have always been a slaveocracy and that this is.
And I always thought that because being a straight A student, I was just absorbing what I was told.
See, but that's literally like giving into the commie propaganda. Because that's just exactly what they say.
Right.
Yep.
Like, no, we've grown, we've changed. There have been many countries that have relied
Weren't
on
we
slavery.
the first country that abolished it?
Countries.
Yeah. But they don't say that with just the horrible things that happen, which, don't get me wrong, we definitely should mention them, like the Trail of Tears, too.
And I mean, I hate to mention it, but slave comes from the word Slav, which is, for anyone that doesn't know, it's a group of people in Europe.
Slovaks.
And they're all white.
Mm-hmm.
So the original slaves,
Slovenians.
like where we get the word slaves from, is literally talking about how white people were enslaved.
Yeah.
So,
well, we got the Jews back in...
Right.
So why is it only...
slavery.
And that's a good point.
Just black people being enslaved is
that's
what we're taught
actually
in school.
correct because
we're never taught about how it's been a thing everywhere.
There's been multiple
you told
wars
me
on
about
slavery.
the Africa one and for white people in Africa. Is it North or South Africa?
South Africa, that was apartheid though.
Like
different.
genocide.
Yeah, that's
and
a genocide.
Yeah, and that's like I never learned about that stuff, and that's stuff that's going on now.
Right.
Like
that was stuff going on while we were in
but
school.
no, we
I
all
learned
learned about
Rwanda
everything
in high
else.
school.
We were just the imperialists. Which don't get me wrong, like kind of sad, but at the same time,
there's still
survival of
so
the fittest.
much worse stuff going on.
Yeah.
Like we came over here and we brought disease that they haven't had before.
Like that's what we learned is that's it. And I'm just
and we did really fucked up shit to them.
Very much so.
Yeah.
We're always taught like the crappiest things we've ever done.
Right, but we're never taught how, even though we've done all that shitty
Africa
stuff,
sold their slaves to us.
right, and that there was literally a woman in charge of it that would rather kill the people that she was trying to sell than to give a discount on them or sell them below what she wanted to sell them for. She'd rather kill them and not get a profit at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
But no, white people are horrible. So I feel like there's a lot of indoctrination.
Yeah.
And definitely in science, because they pushed climate change. And you're the one who got me out of that. Like, I was really, like, pro-green energy and stuff like that. Because that's what they told us. Like, that's just where we should be going. Or, we're going to die soon. We're going to die soon. It's like, you do realize, and you don't know unless you actually look into it, that scientists have been saying this for years. Like, years. Like, since the 40s, 50s, 60s. I think even earlier than that, too.
I feel like...
And it's like, we're going to die before 2000.
Every year.
There is.
Yeah.
And it's
like
fear-mongering.
Somewhere is saying
because
that
it makes
this year
money.
is the year.
Yeah, it sure does.
You never let
so
any
it's
past
like,
go to waste.
we should learn about, like, climate change, but why is that? Because we're leaving out of an ice age still.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
I never learned
we
that.
haven't gotten anywhere close to the highest temperature that it's been.
And what, in 12 years, not even 12 years, a whole 100 years, I think the average of the global temperature increased by a degree.
Right.
Really?
And yet we've had temperatures
like, why do we care?
multiple degrees higher than where we are currently.
See, and that's where...
pollution from our factories when really it's mainly from volcanoes.
And that's where
but we don't learn that stuff. It's all humans' fault.
And that's where a lot of the issues come, where it's one side will say that this is a crazy, crazy, crazy issue. This is a crazy deal in a lot of aspects. Like they'll talk about this in this sense with a lot of topics. police brutality is a crazy thing. Statistically, it's not. They'll talk about a lot of different things, saying this is crazy because I don't like this. But in reality, it's not statistically significant. It's not
statistically
important
significant at all.
It's not important to what we're.
But it's made us. It's made us seem like it is.
Exactly.
And I think that's discussion and indoctrination.
Yeah, and it's
which
just
made
to
me in a
change.
wrong mindset unless I looked into stuff, which I think schools should have already taught me. Like, hey, this is a problem. Here's the things that contribute to it. It's not just humans.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more.
Right. Like, you're sitting here telling me that the biggest issue to the Earth's climate is humans, when right now there's a volcano that's been spewing all sorts of hazardous
sulfur
chemicals.
Yep.
And God knows
Causes
what into
smog.
the atmosphere. Like, for a month straight.
Yep.
Yeah.
A volcano erupting for a month straight.
Like, this is natural stuff. We didn't do
put a
that.
cork
Worse than us driving around. Like, come on now. Like, you can't.
Right.
You can't make this shit up.
And, like, also, with science health class, I think sex ed was pretty good for high schoolers, but I know a lot of schools recently have been doing more than that for younger kids, and not only sex ed, but also showing porn, and, like, in those certain books. What, do you remember where that was?
I know one was in Ohio.
And...
Oh, you're saying, well, I know there are multiple instances.
Yeah, it was a book
books.
literally showing fellatio and...
I believe Loudoun County is one of the counties.
Yeah, Loudoun County, that's it.
Fairfax was another county that had that as well.
Right.
Those are both Virginia
and then
counties.
they dared to tell the parents at that board meeting that, hey, this is inappropriate. I'm like, but you're literally showing this to our kids.
Yeah. Kids are allowed to just go into their library and see this stuff.
And she's like, oh, it's at a high school, though. But middle schoolers can still get high school books.
Right.
I still think certain, like, freshmen in high school are still very immature.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I agree.
And at the end of the day...
I didn't even want to say the word sex until I was in 8th grade.
At the end of the day, if it's like porn, 18 plus is a restriction for a reason.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You can't just have Playboy in the middle of your library.
It's sexualizing children. I think we should just stick to the scientific method rather than, how, like, what's a different, like, how to use dildos. Like, are you serious? Like, you can learn that on your own when you're an adult or close to it.
When
there's an internet for that.
When do we really start talking about the legal age lowering?
Yeah.
When does that start happening?
Right.
So I know it probably will happen.
Right.
I agree.
And I think it might start with, well, you get to vote at 16 now. Well, why wouldn't we let you have sex then? Oh, and then
I think voting at
14-year-olders.
16 is crazy. Yeah. I think at 18 it's at 18
I think it's stupid at 18.
I would have picked Hillary.
Yeah, I think
if I was 17, I would have picked Hillary.
I think it would have been stupid for me to pick at 16, 18, 17. Any of those ages. I think like, even 18.
We're way more mature now. We understand how the world
18.
works. We're moved out. We live on our own.
Well, we do, but not everyone does.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's where this argument goes, is where it's like...
Let's make it all
those
21.
who really still live with their parents and depend on their parents for bills.
Hold on, think about this. Let's make it 21. Because when you're...
I think 21's great.
When you're 18...
You can't drink till you're 21.
It's all of that. But it's also, when you're 18, you have no life experience, no nothing. When you're 21, you at
you're
least...
still living with your parents.
You at least did one of two things. You either finished high school and had to figure out a job or, trade school or this or that, or you went to college for higher education.
Mm-hmm.
You have some experience within those. You have some living on your own experience. You have some experience of paying bills. You have some experience of doing this or that.
Car insurance.
Yes.
Paying off your car.
All different things that kids just experience differently. When we were 18, we had no experience.
And 16, I didn't even drive then. I didn't drive. I didn't get my license until I was 18.
That's another thing. We could have 16-year-olds dictating policy for driving, for abortion, for immigration, all of this stuff that they know absolutely nothing about.
Right. When I was in my junior year of high school, I actually was against the border. And it just doesn't make sense. It literally doesn't make sense.
It's America.
Looking back,
we need a border.
Because I know, but it's like, oh, but these people are human too. That was my argument. And I was just like, wow, that was really stupid. And I got a good grade on it because he also agreed.
See, and the whole...
Isn't that crazy?
Yep. And the whole thing behind, like... I like this...
it's immature. It's immaturity. That's what we are as kids.
So... we say that we shouldn't create borders and that we shouldn't create dividers between us and other countries because other countries some aren't as lucky as us and this and that. But couldn't we also say that, like, we're making the same argument where it's like, this is our country and we believe that every other country is just as great as America. If that's your belief, that we suck, that we're no different than any other country, then every other country should be just as great. And why are there so many people flooding to our country trying to get in here? Why don't we just say, hey, this is our country, we're going to protect it, we're going to take care of it the same way that these people do.
Because we protect our people.
Exactly. If other countries, I'm guaranteeing you, if it was reversed and we had people trying to flock into Mexico, do you think they'd be just allowing everybody in?
No.
Absolutely not.
Especially, no.
We have something that people want. We have a system in place.
Oh, but America's horrible. Don't you know? America has never been great.
You know, that's something I've never understood. If America is so bad, why are we seeing tens of thousands of people flocking to our southern border to come?
People from Mexico.
Oh, why? Why are we
from
seeing
Afghanistan.
people sending their children with God knows who to go God knows where, to have God knows what happened to them?
You apparently have the right to burn down targets here.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
I
don't
bet you
think
can't
you have
go
that
anywhere
right.
else in the world and do that.
No, I don't think you can burn down churches here now. It's fine.
It's
so sad.
stupid.
And I'm not even a Christian,
stupid.
and that's just absolutely unnecessary.
I don't even care if it's like a Christian church. If you went to
Or a mosque.
Or a synagogue.
I said a church for the purpose. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
For the purpose of a...
I'd be outraged if it was any kind of religious institution.
Because why? That's attacking them in their religious beliefs.
Like, they didn't do anything
like, that's
to
disgusting.
you.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Right.
Courthouses, that's an insurrection.
Right.
We're not going to let the judicial system play out.
Right.
That's completely going against our
system. This is what I don't get. They vandalized cities, like federal buildings, state buildings, all of like actual like government facilities,
courtrooms, police stations.
Like they actually vandalized, committed arson, and did all of these things that would actually happen during an actual insurrection or
look at
like
the Wendy's
rising up
fire.
of people against the government. And
that was bad.
Nothing.
Craziness.
Silence, crickets. It's mostly peaceful, is all you were told. But then people go and get let into...
And in schools, they're not being taught to think for themselves. That's what I have a huge problem with. Don't think for yourselves. Listen to what other people talk to you, tell you. Live on your emotions. You don't need... Yeah. You already learned everything you need from us.
Okay.
That's it.
It's stupid.
It is so stupid.
I would like to raise another point. I had many teachers throughout my time try to point out very biased, like CNN. Look at CNN for news. Look at this and that for news. I don't think teachers should do that. I think teachers should try to say...
absolutely not. My teacher did Vice. The one that I said was a really good thing to not have a border.
Yeah. No, and it's like, that's a terrible news source. Like,
right.
You just... I think these teachers should take the time to find unbiased news sources, because that's another part of it.
Do research.
Let's teach these kids to critically think again.
Please.
Because it's really that. It's, I want you to write this research paper. Here are your sources. These are the sources that you're supposed to use. Write this research paper
Exactly.
now. I wrote a lefty piece. Yay, because that's all you give somebody. That's all.
And they gave the
ones.
he gave worse grades to kids who supported the border. I think only like 2 or 3 in that class.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave worse grades to them than me and the other ones.
Anytime I take an English class in college now, it's very much let's put on the liberal cap and let's say all the lefty stuff I can say. and I always do well on essays somehow. Lying through my teeth, I'm just like, this
Oh
is...
yeah.
But it's just like, yeah, terrible.
Right.
I have fun with it nowadays. I definitely throw like shots in there, and I'm just like,
It shouldn't be that case, though. It
Yeah.
really should not be that case. Even if that teacher highly disagrees, why are you so opinionated?
yep,
Right.
You are a teacher. You're supposed to look
Right.
at both sides.
And it's one thing to be opinionated when you're at home or outside of work
Right.
or when you're talking with your colleagues. It's another thing to bring it back to where you're supposed to be teaching people. Or, you know, whether it be a 5-year-old or a 42-year-old in
Yeah.
college. Why are you bringing politics into education?
Yeah, like my sister had to watch the election, not the election. Well, yeah,
The debates.
but the debates.
I don't think watching the
I'm like,
debates is
why?
necessarily bad.
I don't think so either. But
I
she
think
was
It's definitely something that
in
they
middle
should
school
do.
still.
I think it's something that they should do because it's like, oh yeah, this is how our system works. This is what we do.
Exactly.
I could
This
see
is
it in high
what's-
school.
But I don't think like
But middle
I
school,
remember
elementary
you were telling
school?
me about your sister and how what she had to do for it and how she had to not only watch it but answer questions about
Yeah, like
it.
what
and,
president she thought was better, or
Yeah,
what
like do,
what
like,
topics she liked
analysis on
better.
Hold
And it's
on,
like,
wait.
did you watch the debates? They were childish beyond belief.
I want to say this. Now that I'm thinking about like this real quick, I remember the one time that my school district ever made us all watch one thing, like just one day, sit there and watch one thing. Obama's inauguration. Every single student in the school district sat down and watched Obama's inauguration.
Huh?
But nothing else. Nothing else was...
Really?
In
Like
that
I if I had to pick between the two, I would pick debates.
Yeah. It was... Because I remember I was talking about indoctrination. That's, now that I'm thinking about it, that's something
The
that
first
was...
indoctrination I watched was Trump's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if I'm now recalling, like, an indoctrination that was big, that was, like, real, like...
And you were young.
It was 2008. We were
Yeah.
8 years old. We all were forced to, like, we all went down to computer labs in different schools in our district. Because, like, my sister did the same.
I don't really know if I agree with that though.
Well,
I
yeah.
feel like maybe in high school.
All hail
I
great
think
leader.
It depends. I think like
Yeah.
you should definitely. I don't think it should be required, but I think if a teacher says, "Hey guys, like something cool that's happening tonight is this presidential debate." If you get a chance to watch it, you should because that's how our system works. You'll learn a lot about
That very good
like this
idea.
type of thing.
Very good idea. Give them the choice.
What your sister went through with having to,
Answer
give-
questions. Like
answering
watch the
questions.
whole thing.
It's like, first of all, she doesn't have to worry about this. Well, I mean,
She can't
she's
even
gotta
vote.
worry about it.
She
but
can't even vote.
Yeah, she can't even vote.
Not even close.
So why does it matter what she thinks?
Right. She was like 12 or 11 at the time. Like
Right.
really?
So, definitely that's a bit much. But I think, having them see it isn't such a bad thing.
In high school.
In high school, actually, my government class, our teacher was, really adamant about wanting us to,
I
go
wish
out and
I had a
vote.
government class.
Well, that's because, okay, so I was in, the whole extracurricular where I went up to
So that was
extracurricular
extracurricular?
college. So my government class, it was required to graduate in New York State. You have to take a government class.
Yeah.
Legally, you cannot
Mhm.
graduate without
That's
taking one.
that's what senior year was.
Oh.
And so my senior year for ours, it was, one half of the class was learning how to take notes and stuff like that, like a intro to college type stuff. And then the second half was the government class. What we did towards the end of the government class is our teacher worked with the Board of Elections I'm from Syracuse, Onondaga County. And they got a ballot machine, and we actually learned how to fill in the ballots and vote. But that was
Wow.
our senior year of high school.
Yeah, I learned that
And
in
we were
fifth
going
grade.
into the 2018 election.
Fifth grade. No, fourth grade, because that's when Obama was. We had to do our own votes. So we had to vote, and of course, most of us picked Barack Obama because he's the first black president. What else do kids think
Right.
of? Like, oh, that's so cool.
They don't know
Something
anything
new.
about policy.
But they don't see like why
yeah.
would they? They're
Right.
I think
they're
that was kind
children.
that was kind of the first way of really
It was-
indoctrinating kids. Where
yeah.
it's like,
Oh yeah. No, I don't think that should be in elementary at all.
yeah, I get what you're saying. Where it's like you don't. If you get young kids to think about politics, all they're going to think about is how they feel about people.
Exactly.
All they're going to think about is black person, good. All they're going to think about is woman,
good.
All they're going to think about is
And that's why I thought that in
illegal-
2016, as a 17-year-old, like, oh, she would be the first woman. Boom, she should be president.
You're gonna be
without
like-
even,
And that's why I
even though
say-
she said something I highly disagreed with up to 9 months of abortion, which I'm pro-choice, but I thought that was too far. But I still would have voted for her because she was the first woman.
Wow.
Yeah.
we also don't see it as like kids won't see it as like no, women should have a right to choose no matter what. They'll see it as what are illegal immigrants? Those don't exist. Illegal people aren't illegal.
Yeah.
Like, these are all things.
It's all feelings.
These are all talking points that people who would not be able to conceptualize different things will not get.
They don't know how the world works. We should
Yeah.
learn this stuff in high school, not elementary.
Exactly. It's
And
why
that's
don't you
why
figure out
I
how it works
say,
first?
Like, it's one thing to watch, it's another thing to make them analyze and critique.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Like, it's one thing to say, hey, like, if your parents are watching it, sit down and join them and watch it. You know, it's pretty interesting to see how our system works and see,
Yeah.
you know, like, these are the two people that could be, you know, one of them is going to be running the country, you know?
I think the
But
Democrats
it
are
shouldn't go further than that.
I think the Democrats are terrified about the fact that our age group is the most conservative group,
It
they've
is.
ever seen.
It is.
So I think they really are just trying to like counterbalance it and be like, well,
Yeah, and I definitely want to mention critical race theory in another one of our segments for sure.
oh yeah, we'll do a whole segment about CRT.
Oh yeah. One last thing, English. I personally liked the way that it was.
Yeah.
I think maybe include more like independent and group reading, comprehension, and important literature. I think those things should be preserved. More so, I never had independent reading like you did.
Yeah, no, my teacher was amazing. I loved my English teacher in high school. He was so cool. He did like a teacher project at the end of the year where you picked whatever subject you wanted, and you did a presentation to the class. Like, I did mine on cheese because I was literally starting to work in cheese at the time. So I was like, okay, well, here's a bunch of stuff that I learned. And so I actually even brought cheese in.
Zach,
I was
did
like,
you get
That's
bullied?
I'm buying
funny as
that
hell.
grade. I was buying the grade. And so I literally taught the class how cheese is made, the aging process, everything.
Oh wow.
And I ended up getting like a 90-something on that quiz or presentation. He would do independent reading. He would do all sorts of things.
See, and you bring up choice. Like, I think that's something that we should focus more
In English?
In English, where
Yeah.
it's instead of you have to read these 5 books that are 70 years old, maybe switch it up a little bit. Maybe
Another
we can.
thing I don't like is that there's banned books.
Yeah.
Like
that's dumb.
schools
Yeah.
Well,
have these.
That's
there are
stupid.
some
'cause
books
they're
that should be banned.
banned books.
If
Like
you're
porn.
shown porn, it should be banned.
Oh, 100%.
Because this shouldn't even be for kids. It should
Right.
be rated 18 or whatever.
But even though I don't
Immature.
agree with, you know, what is it, the Communist Manifesto or whatever it is, or the works by Karl Marx, whatever.
Those were banned?
I have no idea.
Oh.
But
Probably not. Those are probably
Yeah,
like-
those are probably on every book
Yeah.
shelf in the library.
the library
Multiple
has
copies.
a few different bookshelves of.
They have
the
it in
Communist
each
Manifesto.
language.
I know Barnes
and
and
at
Noble
least
does.
80 copies of each. But I don't think those books should be banned. I think if a student's interested in seeing what those ideas are about, they should be able to go out and read
Well-
what those are about, even if it's in school.
The biggest issue, well, yes, exactly, because if you take it away, then people don't know enough about it. People can't point out the problems with it. So maybe that's the issue with like our whole Red Scare thing, where we said like communism is bad, but we didn't necessarily explain to everybody why communism is
Exactly.
bad.
I agree with you on that one.
Right.
So-
Absolutely.
It was
Now-
all just fear communism.
Yeah, and honestly, that was propaganda.
Now communism
I
seems
saw
kinda
it
good in
as
some
like
aspects.
during the Cold War, they were like, "That's all you need to know is that this is bad." Why? It's bad.
Yeah.
Well, now
Really?
we know exactly why it's bad.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
But
I
not
don't know about everybody because
But
people
it's
think it's good. Some people I know.
I think
Socialism. Ooh.
people just want different things, and that is a radical change that never goes back, and we will be the last country pretty much.
Yeah.
The last country, because once we
I
go
think so,
with a
too.
free market, no other country will be a free market. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because we are the free market for everybody else. We opened up the market to everybody else. I don't think that the market sustains itself without United States intervention.
I agree.
I don't think
And
it's
I didn't
possible.
know that until recently. So.
Speaking of banned books, is Mice of Mice and Men a banned book? Because I remember
I don't
reading
believe
that
so.
in high school.
Yeah, that was read in high school. I don't think it's
I feel like there's a
banned.
lot of books I should have read in high school.
Because I remember, yeah, there was a bunch of books that I wanted to read in high school that they never did.
Yeah, like didn't Dominic say something about 1984?
Something like that.
Yeah, like I thought that would be pretty cool to read into. So.
Yeah. That No, exactly, but that's what I was saying, where like we should have more choice of what books we're allowed to read, what books we, can see.
I think English was pretty good.
Mhm.
To be honest.
Yeah, English really wasn't too bad. I didn't really.
Maybe to help me personally more with vocab, I think that would have been nice. Like they
Yeah.
never, because you said you had like vocab, and
Yeah.
they like made it fun for the kids to
Oh yeah,
like you
there
guys
was
played
incentives
games,
to actually like know.
and
it.
I think school should definitely do that. Absolutely, because a lot of kids just don't like school, rightfully
yeah.
so, because it's boring.
I was actually telling you, Nicole, about like what we would do for the quizzes and stuff for the vocab. So like to study, we would go and do like we would stand up and he would either give us the word or the definition. You'd either have to give whatever he didn't give. So if he gave you the definition, you get the word or vice versa, whatever. And then on the quizzes, if you got 300s in a row, you were exempt from the quizzes for the rest of the year, like for vocab quizzes.
And that's so cool. That would totally motivate
This is the
me.
other thing, though. He also did stuff with the directions. He would say just put down like A for each answer, and that would be a 100. So you didn't even have to know it. He would also make sure that you're reading the directions and reward you if you did.
That's hilarious.
One time he said just put your name on it, wait 5 minutes, and turn in your paper.
Imagine the kids
Like,
that
you
were
just
like
put it
trying
at
to
the
rush
end
through it.
100%. Like so many kids like were doing it until the end of the class, yet like only like 5 or 6 of us finished it right away.
That's great.
It's amazing, yeah. You love when a teacher lets you prosper.
So it was
Right.
my English teacher was amazing. So he just made learning the stuff fun. And he got me into the book A Child Called It. He read us the
Which
sorry
is a
for-
great book.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry for any spoilers if you haven't read it, but he read us
who
the
hasn't?
part where the mom like puts his hand on the burner, and then he read us another part another day where she made him bathe in bleach. And
Zach, is that what your mother did?
no, God,
She
no.
should have.
She really should have. Drink, sip, sip.
Yum, yum.
Yeah.
Put it in the sippy cup.
But oh my God, like it was insane. But it was like eye-opening. Like that's something that I would have never thought to read until he brought
Yeah,
it
or
up.
what other people go through. So I think important
Right.
literature is very important in English. So
Like-
I think we
oh,
should
yeah.
definitely keep that.
You always hear about child abuse and how it's a bad thing, but you never really hear about like the severe cases like that.
You never hear about the good stuff.
Oh my god.
The interesting stories.
Well, that has been the weekly rundown.
We'd like to thank you for joining us.
If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a like, share, and subscribe, and turn on post notifications if you'd like to be alerted when we post.
You can also check out last week's episode on Bill Gates and the red wave that began last week. It was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it was a great episode. Enjoy the rest of your week.